theme song.
What a great theme. New intro music, who dis?
Yes. So if you're watching on YouTube, hi, hello, hit that subscribe button and celebrate the fact that we have theme music and a little theme video. So the video is made by Cullen and my friend Scott Little. He made the music for us and we're so happy with it. It's so wonderful. And it's also kind of tied a little bit to Lord of the Rings, which we're talking about today. It was Cullen's inspiration that we gave to Scott. Like, this is a vibe we're looking for. So give us a comment. Let us know how you like the music. It was on last week's episode too. So
yeah.
Yay. Thank you, Scott.
Welcome back to Not My Fantasy, where we talk about the lore behind our favorite and least favorite fantasy films. I'm Cullen.
And I'm Hannah.
And today we have the host of the Harry Potter Slug Club podcast, Liz.
Woo!
Woo woo.
I just almost used your maiden name. I was like, wait.
I mean, you could have. So
yeah.
My maiden name's more fun.
I mean, actually, they're both fun. I think there's a fun.
My new one is exotic. My old one is alliterative. So
pros and cons.
Liz Lemon. Are you Liz Lemon?
Almost. Liz Lauer. Yeah.
Oh wow. It is. It's kind of
close. No, I'm Liz Achanta. I've become Indian.
Very nice.
I don't look it, but I will one day. I can get rid of the red from my face.
Oh, same. I've got a breakout. Love it. Love when stress does that to me.
Well, I've got Hawaii tan up here, and then I've got so when you get pregnant, if you get pregnant, your blood flow increases to like your face, and it can cause nosebleeds, which is great.
Love that.
I get those all the time, and it causes your face to be red. And also, my skin has never been this horrible in my life.
I already have skin problems, and so this is another one of those cons in the con column. Besides the fact of like having a child in that column, it's like
it's also at the top of the list.
I keep going back and forth. I'm like, I don't know if I want kids, or maybe I do. This is another one in the con column. Did not know that. I've learned so many crazy things about what happens to your body during pregnancy, and it's like there is no end to the things that happen.
Yeah, it's just when like whatever randomly.
Yeah, it's like
if
your
anyone
fingers
tells
grow.
You that they enjoyed being pregnant, they're lying.
I never believe them.
When we're done recording, ask me what my husband gave me for our 3rd-year wedding anniversary.
Happy anniversary!
Happy anniversary!
Don't get pregnant.
You'll get if
you have pregnant and die.
You get pregnant.
Mean Girls.
For real. For real.
Your soul dies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're talking about the Two Towers.
Speaking of being pregnant.
Pregnant.
A battle.
Well, like we said in the Book of Life episode, the Aztec, or was it Aztec or the Mayans? There was a god. Like they're different afterlives, and the war god had like you died in battle or like you died in childbirth. You would go to him. So they were like, yeah, childbirth is a war.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
for real.
I also maybe we'll have to cut this, but there was a TikTok I saw that was like, so if being like having labor pains was God's punishment on women for sin, is like the amount of hair in men's assholes their punishment, because that cannot be God's plan. That could not have been his initial plan.
While at the same time, their hairline receding and it moving down their back. Mm-hmm.
My husband's had the hair on his back since he was 12, so
yeah.
So did Tim.
Yeah. Shout out. Hope you're doing well, Tim. It's been a minute. I should spend every New Year's with you.
And the hair on his back.
I mean, I guess it was there. Wasn't a focus, but it was still present.
Anyway, Two Towers.
Two Towers.
I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm gonna start.
Okay.
Throwing it out there, being the newbie. I have watched The Lord of the Rings literally every year since they came out. My parents took me when I was in the 3rd grade. No introduction into what we were watching. Didn't say that there was gonna be battles and orcs and things like that. And my eyes are like, The Two Towers is my least favorite movie of the 3. I know there's gonna be a lot of haters. It's my least favorite.
I think I'm on that train. I was watching
you kind of hinted at that last week too. I was like, what?
I was like, it's just something about it's a little cornier. Like I was talking about how the Fellowship was kind of amazing that they were able to like not go into camp, that they just did everything so seriously and it works. There are a couple moments in here where it doesn't take you out of the movie. It's not like bad, but I'm like, it's a little like
It is a little campy when they're counting how many
orcs
Urukai that they're killing. I was like, I love this comedy platinum. I love it.
There's good comedy. I think it's like at one point there's like a very much like they meet and they're all like, okay, here's our identities, here's our dad's names, here's what's going on, and you're like,
if you don't have a dad, here's where you're from.
Yeah.
I think for me too, it's a lot of battle, which like people, that's the reason why they love the Two Towers, is because they love the battles.
Love war. My favorite thing.
I know. And for
American,
me, what I love about the movies is the storyline. And it feels like so much of the storyline in the Two Towers is just war.
Yeah.
That I get the Two Towers is when I have a marathon is the one that I tend to fall asleep through. So I can prepare myself for the Return of the King.
So I think this is probably a big difference between, so last week we talked about, or last episode, I talked about how like I had a hard time focusing during Fellowship because I'm being introduced to so many different stories. And I have seen Fellowship before, but it's like, it's hard for me to get into because there's so much going on. But I understand battles and I can very clearly understand what everyone's conflict is. And so I think perhaps it's just because like my in to the series is more about, I guess, discovering the characters through action, through the action scenes and stuff. But now on this watch through, I am paying more close attention to the actual storylines with the characters arcing over from the first movie, because I got more of that this time on this watch through. However, my favorite part of this movie, and I think also was when I originally watched it, are the Ents. I love Merry and Pippin and the Ents. It's my favorite thing. I love it.
And
I learned a great lesson and I can't wait to share it at the end.
Well, because I mean, me and Hannah established last week that we're Merry and Pippin.
Yeah.
We are.
And like their roles in that story.
I'm Merry, he's Pippin.
Like Hannah would be the one to be like, get up your ass and save the world. And I'd be the one to like trick them into doing it. I feel like that's you'd
be the one to grab the crystal ball from Gandalf's hands. Is that in the third one? That's the
third one. Yeah.
Spoiler.
There's, I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I think even though the battle scenes aren't my favorite, I think I appreciated them more in this watch through than in the past, because usually the battle scenes are kind of when I'm like, okay. But this has like, okay, this is a really good battle scene. Like this is a really well, and it's like there's stakes and it's so like when I say it's my least favorite of the three, it's not like it's bad, you know?
It's just you prefer the other movies.
Yeah.
You like Return of the King better, right? Or Fellowship?
We'll see. I used to say Return of the King, but right now I'm feeling Fellowship. But we'll see. I like the idea. I just felt like there's a little, especially with how they rearranged the books in the movies, I feel like there's a little more filler in this one. And it's already like a 4-hour movie. So
I watched the extended edition. I think the original cut was 3 something.
Yeah.
And then was almost exactly 4 for the extended cut. So there's like 20 or 30 extra minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm it's the entire Ent conversation in Ent. That's that's what it was.
Well, because we had the DVD of this one. This was one of the first DVDs, and it was the non-extended edition. And I remember Kate, our guest last week, was really mad that my dad bought the non-extended edition because the extended edition wasn't out.
They weren't out, okay?
Yeah. They were like, you're supposed to wait. And he was like, I don't know. I knew you liked the movie. We are talking about Two Towers, a 2002 movie. As we said, we've seen this movie many a time. Directed by Peter Jackson, written by Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyers, Peter Jackson, and not on Fellowship, but on this one, Stephen Sinclair. Starring the same people as last time, and Andy Serkis as Gollum, Miranda Otto as Éowyn, Carl Urban as Éomer, Bernard Hill as Theoden, Brad Dourif as Grima Wormtongue, and David Wenham as Faramir. This movie opened on a Wednesday and made gobs and gobs of money.
Wow. Back in the day when movie franchises could be like, we're not going Thursday night midnight. We're going Wednesday night midnight, baby.
Well, I think
God,
if
back in
it's
the day.
if it's a holiday, they do that, like a Thanksgiving release.
Oh,
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Because
Yeah.
I think I saw Frozen the Wednesday at midnight.
That makes
Or
sense.
not, I don't think it was midnight. I think it was just night. I think they're like, we're not.
Totally forgot that Carl Urban was in this movie. He looks very different.
Well, he
And
has
it's-
dark hair regularly, right?
Yes,
He
but I
does.
think the face, I'm so used to seeing him as Billy Butcher in The Boys.
Oh my
so
gosh, that's the same guy.
yes, and I was like, what? He looks so young.
I don't know what The Boys is. It's
It's the
Google says
Amazon
it's a
one with the
television series.
superheroes.
Yeah. But yeah, if you look up Billy Butcher, like he's got this grizzled beard, the dark hair, he's like wrinkles and dirty and grimy, so sexy. But like in this movie, I was like, oh my God, that's the same fucking person.
Yeah.
The range. My
The
goodness.
I remember as it would have been fourth grade me watching this and not being attracted to him. Obviously, fourth grade
wasn't
Liz
attracted
attracted to Legolas and Aragorn. But now having rewatched it, I'm like, man, like
Really? Amer. Okay.
horse boy, like
Mhm.
okay.
Oh, we should talk about our backgrounds. We're doing backgrounds for our
Oh, yeah.
visual listeners.
I mean, I just feel so natural in this environment. I totally forgot that this isn't where I am actually. I'm in Rivendell. Not Riverdale, Rivendell. I now know the difference.
I'm in my favorite Middle Earth Kingdom, Lothlorien setting of the best number in Lord of the Rings the musical.
Very true. Yes. Second best setting in Lord of the Rings musical. I am in the Shire with my people, the hobbits. If I were to be a character in Lord of the Rings, I would be a hobbit.
Question. Does anyone have a desire to go to New Zealand to see like the whole setup?
It's
Even though I'm not
literally
a-
a bucket list item of mine.
I'm not even like a huge fan of these stories. I am getting a new appreciation, but even if we weren't doing this, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'd go and see that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean the Hobbit homes are too like some of the coolest stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so
Love
glad
it.
they didn't just get rid of them and they like kept them up.
Well, and the
Yeah.
hobbits enjoy eating. They enjoy
eating.
drinking beer,
Love that
making
too.
beer, and they
Never
enjoy
tried it.
just sitting. And
I
I
love
enjoy
sitting.
all of those things.
Yep.
So they're my
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, I mean we picked 3 good locations. Like,
Yeah.
I would rather live in any of these than like Gondor, you know.
I was gonna say America. Yeah.
Also America. We'll talk about America a bit today.
Yes.
Red, white, and blue, these colors don't run. So when we're talking about kind of the backstory, usually we focus more on like the folklore that was derived from. We don't talk a ton about the release. I mean, we did a little bit with some of the Disney movies and kind of the cultural evolution of Disney. But so we're going to talk about the War on Terror. It was not on people's minds when these movies were being made. They were made before 9/11. They were released after 9/11. So in this cultural zeitgeist, I think
98, 99 when they were filming, or 99,
Yeah.
2000. One of the
Well,
two.
they came out 2001,
2001.
2, and 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would have been probably like 99.
Yeah. And so it's like, oh, also I'm wearing a Sleeping Beauty shirt in honor of Aowen because I think they're similar in a way.
Eilonwy. Lindsay.
Lindsay.
We should call Eowyn Lindsay in this movie because he would not be able to say her name.
Teal, yeah, he could not say Aowen. He's like,
I'm wearing
Winifred?
a yellow crop sweater.
I didn't read the notes, and so I was like, oh, this is just a podcast. So when I had first logged on, I was wearing a fuzzy sweater or a fuzzy robe. So I put on my
Oh
more
my gosh.
professional J. Crew
Very nice.
cardigan to show that I mean business.
This is important. This is business. So the movies were kind of, I feel like part of their reception was really built on this like era in the world and especially in North America where it was like, we have these evil foreign people in the East and they're gonna take over our lands and like overrun us with their evil culture unless we unite against them. It's kind of very good versus evil, like against this outside invading force. And like that kind of call to arms. And I think Tolkien obviously did not write the books with that in mind. They came out a way long time ago, and he is very clear on that he does not like allegory, and they're not an allegory for anything. And the movies were not made with that in mind, but coming out, like, that definitely benefited, I think, how they're perceived, because it was like, yeah, like, remember the freedom fries shit, you know, because the French didn't want to go to war. And like when people hate on the Dixie Chicks because they didn't want to go to war, or when the Pope
That's
was
why, listen, that's why the Chicks basically got canceled and did not make music for a long time, or were able to make music and be celebrated because of that Ents bullshit.
Yep.
They did not deserve that.
They did not.
They were just saying things that people didn't want to hear, and also because they're women. And I'm fine. It's fine. I love the Chicks.
It's not fine.
It's not fine. And Taylor Swift talked about that in her documentary about, like, she was never say anything political because everyone was like, look what happened to the Chicks.
Yep.
You know? There was also a lot of people spoke out. The Pope was like, maybe don't do this. And then we did. And people say the Rings of Power show on Amazon is kind of in conversation with that, in that maybe I think I read that, we'll link the article. I think some of the points they made don't fully grasp what the lore of Rings of Power is referring to, because they're referring to elves as like foreign invaders of Middle Earth, even though like there were elves in Middle Earth when Melkor was doing his shit. But this idea that like people who think they're on the side of good destabilize things and end up giving evil forces or negative forces more power. And so this was a big thing at the time. Like Viggo Mortensen though wore a shirt on a press tour that was like no war for oil, because he was trying to be like, no, this isn't what we're trying to say. And I just remember people being like, do you think they called it the Two Towers because of 9/11?
Yes. Tolkien called his book, written in the 50s, the Two Towers, because he predicted 9/11.
Nostradamus who?
That's wild.
Yeah.
I have never heard that before. Yeah, that is wild.
And like they were mainly like dumb kids or whatever, but that was still a thing in like conservative religious circles that were very into this movie. And so I'll also link this article that I read talking about, I didn't read all of it because it was like an academic paper, but I skim-read parts. I had a busy week at work. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. But and they're talking about how they felt the book kind of struggles with saying violence is bad and horrific and glorifying it a little bit, but still leans more on the it's horrific. And the movies kind of glorify it a bit more and play it up a bit more, moving it to more climactic.
That's something I wanted to say is last week I talked about how the battle scenes that we saw in Fellowship, I didn't feel like we're glorifying battle. And this I feel like does a lot.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I need to make a note of that because I thought that was really interesting. It's actually, I think it's a very different take on battles and war.
Yeah. I mean, that's what when I was a kid, I remember thinking, oh, that's what people like this because the battles. Because that's what, like, the boys would talk about, you know, like, this battle scene or that battle scene. And so for a while, as a young, like, barely a writer, but like a child, like, I thought, oh, every story needs a big, violent, bloody battle, or otherwise people won't think it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could potentially just be, like, part of the American lore in general, like things that we hold dear as values, is that like war is kind of a virtue in some ways. So
the awards that the Two Towers won were not a lot of them because of the battle at Helm's Deep. Maybe we need to
look into the Oscars and whatever. Let's see.
I know The Return of the King won the most awards.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it had to do with Helm's Deep.
Some of the movies that are coming out these days, I'm on IMDb and there's like the first slide here is for that Megan movie where she's like a robot child. Yeah, she's like a robot child.
Yeah.
Weird. Anyway,
Academy Award, it won for Best Sound Editing, Best Visual Effects.
Best action sequence for MTV.
It won Best Fantasy Film at the Saturn Awards. Like, what else was gonna win? Best Supporting Actor, Andy Serkis. Best costume design, best makeup.
Yeah, so Oscars, it was nominated
Best
for
picture.
film editing, sound, art direction, and set deck, and then best picture. So, but it won for VFX and sound editing, which I imagine is probably because of the battle scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really good.
Sound editing is hard. I want to say that from when
Yeah.
we had to do that in Patrick's class, and I tried
Shout
to
out
make
to Patrick.
an unbuttoning sound, and I had to go out in the middle of the park on the river in Boston in the winter and bang coat hangers together. And then a classmate complained about the sound, and I was like,
Well, at least you tried.
yeah, I was trying to make
That was the
button
Foley
noises.
project, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know what I
Foley's
say,
hard.
Cullen.
Yeah.
Hannah, you don't know what I say. I'm about to tell you what I say. Bitches gonna be bitches. So
Oh, I love that. I want that
Yeah.
on a t-shirt. Damn. Yeah, cinematography, they got nominated for BAFTA Children's Awards.
This is children?
Best feature film for the BAFTA Children's Awards.
This is a children's film? There are
I
children
mean, my
in it.
parents took me.
That's true. This is what,
And I was
PG-13
12.
probably?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all
Interesting.
PG-13.
Well, here's what I will say. These scenes aren't super bloody. Well, so the one that's in daylight, you see maybe a little bit, but in the nighttime, the help
Yeah.
sleep one, you can't really see it.
Well, the orc blood is black. So it's not
Yeah, so
really
it doesn't count.
blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked a lot about the orcs as just like mindless things for you to kill in a video game.
Yeah.
We had a GameCube growing up, and the best video game was The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers
Ooh.
video game for GameCube, because of the Battle of Helm's Deep and all the orcs you got to kill. There's actually cheat codes so you couldn't die, so you just kill orcs the whole time, and it was great.
We love a cheat code.
Motherload, Rosebud.
Mhm.
Shout out to my simmers out there. Bam, 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 bam.
So also in this is kind of Tolkien was very against the rise of industrialism and what it did to the English countryside, which smart.
Valid.
That's a very good point. And so he included those themes a lot in his work, which is why, especially we talked about last fellowship, how this film took off with the counterculture because of those environmental themes. And there's even, I don't want to, based on who we're having for next week, I don't want to spoil something for them because they're reading through the books on their podcast. So we're going to talk about it this week. In Return of the King, there's a section that was cut from the movies where after all the stuff in Rohan, Saruman and Grima go to the Shire and they start like a gang and they like create industrialism and like destroy the Shire and like make everything brown and dirty. And then the hobbits come back and like defeat them.
Oh my goodness. So
As in Frodo, Merry, Pippin, and Sam, the hobbits.
Yeah.
Mary.
Yeah, because they had
were right in this
enslaved the
movie.
the Shire folk to do their bidding, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was all basically like he ruined everything. And like it goes back, but it's supposed to be like, yeah, they went off to save their home. And Saruman basically ruined their home as revenge because he was pissed.
He's a bitch.
He is bitches be bitches.
Bitches gonna be bitches.
Honestly, you said that, and I'm like, that describes Saruman.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a hater.
Yeah, he's a hater. Yeah.
Like Taylor Swift says, you know. You need to calm down.
Bitches gonna be bitches.
Bitches gonna be bitches. You need to calm down was written about Saruman. It's like, he's a hater and he's probably homophobic. And so Ents are the new addition to the lore in this movie. They are a Tolkien invention.
I love that.
And they kind of like orcs. They didn't have quite as big of a splash in the fantasy genre, but they've become kind of a staple. It's derived from an old English word for giant, kind of like Etten. They became a staple of fantasy. D&D had Ents, but then the Tolkien estate was like, that's ours. So then they called them Trents, and that spread to other games like the Heroes of Might and Magic franchise, which I was super into. They had Trents, and they actually, in that particular video game, Heroes of Might and Magic 5, they had to redesign the Trents because they looked too much like the Ents in Lord of the Rings. And they had to make a new design because they didn't want to be sued.
Yeah.
Tree spirit tales, though, like trees, tales old as time, especially since IRL scientists have discovered that trees communicate with each other. So you have like druids in the Celtic world, like Celtic priests saw oak and elm trees as sacred. That oak trees also big in Germanic and Greco-Roman myth. They're often associated with like sky gods like Thor, Jupiter, Zeus. You know, like Zeus had an oracle, and Dodona that was an oak tree. We've mentioned before when we talk about nymph erasure, we talked about dryads who were goddesses of oak and later kind of all trees. And there's also a story in Japan about a man who married a girl who turned out to be a willow spirit because they like cut down the local willow tree and she died. And according to mythology.net, there are several types of dryads and hamadryads. Most common are the dryads and hamadryads from oak and poplar trees. There's also the Meliae of ash trees. They used to marry humans before there were women. The Oreades who dwell in mountain pines. The Maliads and Amphiliads who inhabit fruit or apple trees. We're getting ant wife vibes. We'll talk about them. And then the Daphne inhabit laurel trees after that girl that Apollo was chasing, and she turned into a laurel tree, and then he wears the laurels to kind of be like, I tried to like force you to be my girlfriend, or maybe do something even worse, and now I get to wear your leaves as hair as accessories. Don't let anyone tell you patriarchy was a Middle Ages thing. It is old.
A tale as old as time.
Tale as old as time. And then there's I've never heard of them before, caryatids who inhabit walnut trees. Yeah. So most European tree spirits and tree beings are goddesses, with the exception of the Finns and the Slavs had some male deities with the forest.
Interesting.
And we're going to talk about my favorite revenge of nature story. That has to do with trees. We're going to talk about Ceres and Erysichthon. It is from Ovid's Metamorphosis. It's about this man who fucking sucks. So there's this grove of oak trees that's dear to Ceres. In Greek mythology, she's called Demeter. She's the goddess of the earth and like fertility. So people would pray and leave offerings there, and prayers would be granted. And the dryads, the tree spirits, would come and dance arm in arm around this huge tree. Yeah, it's giving very like Fleetwood Mac, Celtic Woman, like Midsummer Festival. Yeah, like
shawls, beads.
Yeah. He's like, I'm gonna cut that down, and people are like, oh, what? No. And then he's like, though this be itself the goddess, not just what the goddess loves, now its leafy crown will meet the earth. So this guy's saying, even if this was Ceres herself, I'd cut it the fuck down. So the tree's like bleeding like human blood as he cuts it, and people are like, God, like stop. This guy even is like gets in the way, and the guy just like kills him because he's like, no, I'm cutting this tree down.
This guy does suck.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, he's bitches gonna be bitches. Like, he's just out here to ruin everyone's day with murder. And
this is a Greek mythology, you said,
yes,
correct?
Yeah,
which is based on true facts. We know,
real fact. I mean, honestly, I talk about every story we talk about on this podcast like it's something that happened. That's just
Well, I mean, it could.
It could. Honestly, probably. So the dryad, as she's dying, says, I am a nymph most dear to Ceres under the surface of this wood, who prophesy to you as I die that punishment will follow, blood, out of my ruin the only good. So basically the only good thing that's going to come from me dying is you're going to be punished.
Love that.
So the dryads are weeping, they dress up in black, and they go to Ceres, and she's like, you fuck around, you find out. Like, the cornfields are all shaking because she's mad. So she's like, I need to talk to Famine, but because of the rules, like, I can't get close to Famine because we're opposites. So she summons an Oread, which is like a mountain nymph, and is like, here's the keys to my chariot pulled by dragons. Go to Famine, tell her to ruin this man's life.
Yeah, this definitely happened. Dragons are real.
Dragons are real. So she gets to Famine, and Famine's all like creepy, but Famine's like, yeah, sure, I'll punish him. So she goes in, Famine breathes herself into this man, and he becomes so hungry, he spends all his money, all his land on buying food to eat, and he can never be satisfied. So he's still hungry. So then the last thing he has is his daughter, who he keeps selling into slavery, and she keeps escaping, and he keeps selling her again, and then she just doesn't come back. And then he doesn't have any money to buy food, so he eats himself.
Okay, when you said that his daughter, like you mentioned his daughter, I was like, oh my god, he's gonna eat his daughter.
He's gonna eat it, right?
Yeah, but then okay, but at what point do you get sold into slavery so many times and you're like, I'm not gonna go back to that place because that guy keeps selling me into slavery?
I think it was 2 or 3 times. And there's
I was like, okay, after the second time, you gotta stop.
You gotta stop.
Yeah.
And there's this whole other aspect of the story where she has like shape-shifting abilities, and either from herself or from Poseidon. So she like turns into animals to escape slavery.
Wow.
Yeah. But so basically the story of like, you fuck with the trees, they fuck back. That's old. Like, you're gonna eat yourself. So I said we're gonna talk about the lore of Ents in Middle Earth, and I think I'm gonna save some of that for next week, because in order to start describing that, I'm gonna have to describe a bunch of other things that Hannah's gonna be like, what the fuck? So like next week we're focusing just on like Tolkien lore and like Middle Earth lore. So, but we are gonna talk a bit about the Entwives. So the Entwives liked to plant gardens and like orchards, and the Ents like to leave their bushes untrimmed. So that made a little friction, and so they were like, we're gonna move over here kind of south of like Mirkwood, like in between like Mirkwood and Mordor and like the Lord of the Rings map, like, and we're gonna make gardens. Sauron, the little piss baby that he is, eventually destroys their gardens, and no one knows what happens to them. They either fled or were enslaved or were killed. And Tolkien even was asked like, what happened to the Entwives, and he said, I don't know. But there's also like rumors like Sam's uncle or somebody saw something in the Shire that maybe could be interpreted as an Entwife, because Treebeard's like, maybe they live in the Shire, that seems like a place they would like.
Yeah. It was at Mary's like, can't say that I have seen any.
Yeah.
Just very casual, like, no, I don't think so.
And the Entwives, unlike the Ents, like interacted with humans and taught them about agriculture. Yeah, I think honestly, the Rings of Power better answer Entwives.
The question, yeah.
Yeah, like if they don't, I'm like, why do you exist? Why did you make this show?
Well, we have to remember, I don't know if you covered this last week, but Tolkien, when he wrote these books, was like, this is history. Like, I was told this history and now I'm writing it down. So like for him to be like, I don't know, is kind of hilarious.
Yeah. It's like, no one told me. I don't
right. Yes.
No one told me what happened to the Entwives.
We don't know what happened.
We just don't know. We lost them.
They had to have been killed. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they were
the personification, like, humans need sex, trees need sex. Women aren't gonna go 3 millennia without sex and have little babies.
Yeah.
They had to have been killed.
Yeah, that's probably what happened.
Unless they all became lesbians. And then they're like,
they figured out how to self-produce.
Yeah.
Yeah, Herland, Charlotte Perkins Gilman.
Maybe that's what's going on with the blue wizards that we talked about. Like, the blue wizards help the Entwives figure out how to produce women on women. Yeah.
They took those amphibian cells like from Jurassic Park, and
exactly. BD Wong's in there injecting the Entwives. It's a crossover of lore. Because life will find a way.
Yeah.
Yes.
So true.
Kind of, sort of ish what this movie's about. So that's kind of we're doing a little lighter on the lore than we did for the first one, because we're probably going to go heavy with I'm going to try and keep the discussion of Tolkien's Legendarium down to like basics next week, because there's a lot. But so this was kind of like the new edition of this movie was like the Ents. And at this point, we've basically met every major like society in Middle Earth. Like, we'll see more of Gondor next movie, but we've met them this one.
Yeah, we had a flashback.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Two Towers. So we're doing the storyline separately. Shout out to any Glee Booties listening.
You're gonna really love this format. Or if you don't like that format of Glee Boot, too bad.
Too bad. We're back. So there's three plots. I'm gonna say Frodo and Sam are the A plot, but I think the movie sidelines the A plot to the point it feels like the B plot.
Yes.
That's what I mean is filler, is because like the B plot I would say is the battle for Rohan, which kind of becomes the A plot. And then the C plot is Merry and Pippin and the Ents. So Frodo and Sam they're, depending on the edition, they're not who you open with, but we're gonna start with Frodo and Sam.
Right.
So they're like climbing through these rocks using his elf rope from Galadriel, and they're like, we're lost babes, like we don't know where we're going, like we're in circles. Gollum is following them, but they're like, they have an idea. They trick him.
Where are they? They're in like some sort of like mountain range, right?
It's a labyrinth. I think in the books they call it.
Is it Emyn Muil? Is that it?
Great question.
I should pull out my War of the Ring board game. They're the two giant boards because the map is so giant it can't be one board that has like literally like every like corner of Miller.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because I was like, I couldn't remember. I was like, oh, how did they get here? Because they were coming from
they were at Amon Hen, so they went to Lothlorien.
Yes.
So this is gonna be so great for this auditory medium, but there's a river.
They were here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the Misty Mountains that separate like Rivendell and Lothlorien. There they go through Moria. You go to
It's right
Lothlorien.
here.
Yeah.
It's us.
And they get on this river that goes down, and the river, if you kept taking it down, would go to the city Osgiliath that Faramir's at later.
Right.
Pretty sure. But they go off the river into like the mountains to get to the Black Gate, which is kind of facing Mirkwood. So they're in this kind of like no man's land area in between, like you have Rohan and Gondor and Mordor and like Lothlorien and Mirkwood, and there's this kind of like empty space.
Yeah,
like nobody really lives there.
They kept saying that they were lost and stuff, and I'm like, I mean, you're just going toward the red in the sky, right? So just keep going that direction. I mean, that's what I do in Minecraft. I was like, okay, I have my center point. I know where I'm supposed to be. I just keep going in that direction, making sure the numbers go where they need to go. Yes, I play Minecraft with the GPS settings on. Everything looks the same to me in Minecraft. Anyway, but yeah, you just go toward
on
the
that
red.
same note, real quick, I saw an Instagram post today, and it was in the 1920s, we pulled the children from the mines, and then in 2020, we create a game that children love called Minecraft.
Oh my
God.
God.
Because the children love the mines.
The children go back into the mines. I mean, Minecraft is so old at this point, though. It's like 12 years old.
It's old, yeah.
It's so old. And I only
But you can play it on Switch, so.
Yeah, exactly. Now you can play it on Switch, which I have it on the Switch. We have it on the Xbox. We both have it on PC. Lyle got me into it. Oh God, I wish I could talk for an hour about the first time I played Minecraft. It was a mess.
Patreon.
And it's, we should for possible future Patreon. Anyway, but yeah, so they're in these mountains and they're lost and they're being followed.
So they kind of are like, I think
by Andy Serkis in a green screen suit with dots all over him.
So Gollum, I would say on the scale of like how well has a CGI aged, I would give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay,
like,
I'd give it like a 5 or 6.
5 or 6,
halfway.
Like you can tell it's CG in a way that like when you saw the movie, it was like it's like he's there, and now you can very much tell he's like
there's an outline around him, sort of.
yeah, but like again, I'm saying the time and stuff, like, and because he's just one thing and he's kind of grungy, and it's like it's pretty smooth. It doesn't really take you out of it. Like you notice it, but like you accept it. You know? Like the cartoon part of Mary Poppins. Like you obviously know they're not like.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example, like a comparison.
So Gollum is following them. So what they do is they pretend to be sleeping, and then he comes to grab them, and they like grab him, and they fight. It's like WWE, they're like flipping around, and then they're like, okay, Gollum, you're gonna help us find Mordor. And he swears on Precious, based on the novel Pushed by Sapphire. We will keep making that joke.
We have to.
And so they're like, okay, he's true to his word, he's gonna lead us. And Sam's like, I don't like him, I don't trust him.
Yeah, see, in this situation, you would be Frodo and I would be Sam. I feel like you would be more trusting and being like, I'm gonna give this person a chance. I'd be like, fuck this person.
Yeah, I kind of get, as a kid watching it, so I was like, come on, Frodo. I was always on Sam's side.
Yes.
And I think I get it a little more now that he sees that like what the ring did to him.
Well,
And
also because was it Gandalf who had that conversation with him in Fellowship? He's like, well, Bilbo also didn't like kill him, and he could have. It's because like pity, is really what's driving it.
And so there's this idea, and like Frodo's kind of like, oh, I could be him. He feels like that kinship, like the ring would do that to me too eventually. So he has that empathy that Sam just doesn't quite have.
Yeah, Frodo's an empath.
I hate that's my sidebar when people say, because one time I said something and someone was like, oh, are you an empath? And I'm like, I mean,
I'm a human being who has empathy. Yes.
Yeah, like I think I'm more likely to use it than other not other people in general, but there are other people in the world who would use empathy less than I do. Like, yeah, I'm on that, but like that doesn't mean it's a superpower.
So I guess it makes me an empath.
It's like my superpower, breathing. So I get it, and so. But Frodo's like, okay, let's trust him. And he takes them through the dead marshes where there's this battle, and now there are little ghosts in there, little bodies.
The dead marshes, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that where like part of the big battle was between Sauron and Isildur?
I think that's what they're saying, or at least part of that same war, if not that battle. Yeah, it's all marshy and swampy, and there are corpses floating in there with their little lights. And Sam sloshes in a bit, and I'm like, flashback to that Gods of Egypt swamp. And then Frodo just like, Frodo's having, the ring is messing with him. Like, it is fucking up his mental health.
Because Gollum's like, stay away from the lights. Don't look at the lights.
Yeah, and Frodo's like,
Frodo fucking looks at the lights.
I'm looking.
Eyes wide open.
And he falls in, and then they're all creepy ghosts encircling him.
Again, so let's rate this visual effects. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 10. It's I mean, it is still pretty spooky. Like when you see them, like when they're walking along the marshes, you see them in the water. That is very spooky. Once he goes into the water, I'm like, I'm more afraid of him just drowning, because again, now that I know that how his parents died. Oh my god!
Wait, how did his parents die?
They drowned.
Drown.
Oh,
I didn't know this. I learned that last episode, and this episode that's all I was thinking about. I was like, so anyway, and then Gollum pulls him out.
Yeah, Gollum saves him, and I'm like, that's a good choice, because now there's like
save the Frodo moment.
And then because Frodo's like, stop shitting on Gollum, Sam, because he calls him like stinker and stuff. He's like,
yeah,
don't be a
don't
but
be a dick.
He probably saw Gollum like take a shit in his little loincloth, and that's why I call him stinker.
Yeah, probably.
Honestly. He probably was stinky.
Yeah.
I hadn't had a bath in days.
I looked up this tweet from Zach Dunn because I think of it all the time, especially on this podcast. Gollum, Dobby, there was a time when buying a ticket to the movies meant you were about to see a truly disgusting little freak.
I love that.
I think of that all the time, and it kills me. Yeah, so they're kind of, Frodo and Gollum are kind of bonding. I get the sequence of events a little mixed up, but there's one point where Gollum brings him like rabbits, and Sam is like, we gotta season it and cook it. We're not gonna eat it raw.
Yeah, because he starts like gnawing at it.
Yeah,
and he's like, you're gonna make us sick because like you're pulling at the skin.
Yeah,
and then Gollum like is like weeping over the stew that actually looks kind of good.
Yeah,
that he made. He's got that special salt. Oh, because when they go down the mountain, he drops this box and they're like, save it, and they almost kill themselves
to save
for
the
salt. But I did like, they were like, it's like a little piece of home. I was like, okay, I get that. It's not just because you need seasoning.
But so they have, and he's like, oh, some nice taters, and Gollum was like, taters precious.
What's taters precious? Potatoes.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in the stew.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my ancestors lived on. So
same, mine too.
You can actually live like potatoes can provide you enough nutrients to like function. So
It
they
has
should
to
have
be a
really
buttered
packed-
potato.
Really?
Yes. Otherwise, you're missing out on
Buttered
the
with
fat
Kerrygold butter.
content.
Hmm.
Only
Kerrygold
Yeah,
Kerrygold
well,
butter.
like they would have had, the Irish would have had
Yeah,
cows, right? Like,
actual
Yeah.
Kerrygold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my people, potatoes, pasta, sauerkraut.
yeah,
Those are my
mine would be
people.
sauerkraut and
So-
sausage.
I mean, so are you saying you're German, Italian, and
Like-
Irish?
Yep. Yep, I am.
So he's growing to trust Frodo, and they kind of bond over like the precious and the shininess, and that the Dark Lord wants it. Also, the Nazgul are back. The Ringwraiths are back. They have a new
Yes.
ride. These little wyvern things. Because
Yeah.
I at first I always thought that they were called Nazgul, that they're riding little wyverns. But I don't think they have it. I think they're called fell beasts, which is like you didn't even bother coming up with the name.
Oh, the Ringwraiths are called the Nazgul?
Yeah, I think it
Oh,
means the
interesting.
9 in one of the languages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Makes
And
sense.
meanwhile, Sam is kind of like, dude, you're obsessed with that ring. Like, put the phone down and sleep and eat, you know? Like, get off ring talk and like focus on real life.
But that algorithm though.
That
That
algorithm.
algorithm
You know
though.
what? That algorithm is truly the will of the Dark Lord. So they get to the Black Gate, which is this huge gate.
Yeah.
And they're opening it up for the Easterlings, is what these people are called. As a kid, I thought the one that comes to investigate was a woman. Again, I was always adding female representation into this franchise that barely had any. And yeah, they're from this place called Run. And so they're the vaguely East Asian villains.
Yeah, they have a eyeliner on, Cullen.
Mhm.
That's how I knew they were exotic.
Yeah. So this is when we start to get into the evil humans are the ones that aren't white coated.
And that is a symptom of just cinema, I guess.
Yeah.
It's, like Tolkien didn't do that. Tolkien wasn't like, and they have eyeliner on.
yeah.
Maybe he did. I don't know. I didn't
Maybe
read the
he did.
books. Is it in the source material?
I mean, the elephants, people riding elephants is in the source
The
material.
Oliphants?
Yeah, the Oliphants.
It
yeah.
is. But the
Uh,
Oliphants aren't native to Middle Earth, from what I
Right.
recall.
Oh, really?
I
Where
don't
are they
think
from?
they are.
So wait, the exotic people are from Middle Earth, but the Oliphants are not?
Well,
Hold on, I'm Googling.
so there's two groups of these humans that we see. We see the Easterlings, and they're from Run, which is like east of Mirkwood and like Erebor, you know, where the Hobbit and all that stuff takes place. They're
Yes.
east of there.
Okay.
And then so we have the Easterlings, and then you have they call them the Haradrim or the Southrons. And there's a few ethnic groups there because there's also the Pirates of Umbar, but they're people that are south of Gondor and Mordor.
So Oliphants are native to south of Mordor, according to
Okay.
Yeah.
Google.
They're from
Right.
Okay.
the Haradrim are more obviously ethnic coded because they're from the desert.
And is that who is at the Black Gate?
Those are the elephant people that ride the elephants. So the
Oh, okay.
Easterlings aren't in the source material as obviously ethnic coded. They just live east.
Right.
Got
it.
So Sam falls because Gollum's like, we can't go, don't go. And Sam's like, oh, I think I see a way. And he falls. And Frodo's after him, and they're sliding down those rocks. I'm like, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, cuts and bruises.
And then the Easterlings come to check it out, and they have their cloaks over them, which makes them look like a rock.
Yes.
And they're like, okay.
Which
and
is kind of bananas to me, but whatever.
It's a
I'm
cheat
just gonna
Speaking of
Yeah,
cheat
yes, motherload. Motherload.
Elf cloak. And so the Easterlings march away, and somehow no one in this wide open field sees these hobbits, and they're like, Gollum's like, there's another way. Like, you'll die and he'll get the ring if you go through there.
Yeah.
So he will get so there's another way. So here's the thing. I don't want to say it's a plot hole, but it confuses me. So Gollum is like, I know this other way. And at this point, it's implying that he's trusting Frodo more. Right?
Right.
So it's like he wants to help Frodo. But then you get this idea that like he's gonna try and hurt Frodo because he felt like Frodo betrayed him, but he's still taking them on the same road.
So wait, like at this point, he's
So
feeling
he's
that?
like, so there's really only two ways into Mordor, and I do want to know what Aragorn and Gandalf's plan was and why they didn't tell Frodo what their plan was. But there's
They're
the
taking a page out of Dumbledore's book.
yeah, there's the Black Gate, Morannon, like the where they are, which I'm pretty sure looks very different when we get to it in the third movie because suddenly there's like a big open field instead of like this kind of narrow path. But that's okay. But then there's also Cirith Ungol, which is the path by that they go eventually go through. So there's two ways. And so Gollum's like, I know the other way, but then they frame it as Gollum's trying to like trick them. But there are only two ways. So it's like, and that Gollum is like at the end of the movie, right? He's like, oh, she's gonna do it, like she'll get them.
Oh, right.
But he already before when he was trusting Frodo picked that road.
Well, I think part of me feels like he wanted as much time with the ring as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So if he could get them to take a safer route, not safer, but buy himself some more time with the ring, it would have been better for him.
Interesting.
He's a sneaky little bastard.
So maybe it's that he did originally at this first point want to help, and then by the time we get to the end where he's like she can do this, like maybe he, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he was like,
weird.
I'll sneak them through, and then now he's like, I'm not gonna help them sneak. I'll take them there
and
well, the part
like,
in the
obvious.
movie where he's like, leave now, don't come back, whatever, hasn't happened yet.
Yeah,
not at this point in the movie, right?
No,
yeah,
right. Mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of the next kind of moment in this arc is that Smeagol, Gollum, because Frodo calls him Smeagol. And it's like, you were one of
learns his name,
yeah, you were one of the river folk, like you were kind of like a hobbit once, you know, like he's like building that connection, that empathy, that like we're kind of the same. And so he's like, Master's nice, like I can be Smeagol, like I don't have to be like this. And Gollum's like, I made you who you are, like you're who, like I'm everything. And he's like, no, go away and never come back. He like yells at his evil side and it goes away and he's like, he's happy.
Yeah, this is just like on a technical perspective, I think the way this is shot is really interesting because it's shot as if it's two different people talking. It goes back and forth on two different shots, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, they shoot that scene really well. Really well done.
And I think when Gollum / Smeagol is alone, I feel like he looks better in his environment. Once you put people next to him, it's a little.
Shout out to the song that they play at the end of the movie that is supposed to be sung from Gollum's perspective, and I'm like, that's a choice.
I'm sorry, what is it really?
Yeah, it's like there once was light, now darkness reigns. Yeah,
bananas.
Yeah, it's like I remember people kind of being like, yeah, this is cool. I remember kind of being like, this is fucking weird. And now I'm gonna say it. I think that song's fucking
You
weird.
know what? We're just gonna say it.
Yeah, like I think the Enya song at the end of the first one fits the vibe. Don't know why they're like, you know what the takeaway of this movie is? Gollum. So the next thing is they see the Haradrim, the Southrons with the Mumakil or the Oliphaunts on their way because Sauron is gathering his army. And so then Faramir and the Gondor Rangers, these humans shoot them down, you know, and then the hobbits are like, okay, fuck, there's drama, and like Gollum sneaks away, and then they get captured by the Gondor people. And Faramir is like looking at this dead guy, and he's like, you know, he probably didn't want to go to war. He probably had a life back home that he was not happy about leaving. Like he's like essentially like he's not pure evil. Like
we're never going to be able to find out if he was actually like pure evil or if he was doing it because he was ordered to. He was doing it because that's what he was told to believe.
Yeah.
Which
is probably true of a lot of soldiers, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think Sam had that line in the book, but I think it was a good idea to give it to Faramir. who is very different in the books, but he's way more memorable in the movies.
Yeah.
This plot with Faramir like being tempted by the ring is not in the book. He's just kind of like, yeah, I don't want that ring, and like lets them go on. And so I know a lot of people were upset and they said they like ruined Faramir, but I think as a storytelling, like to tell a story, like they put a story instead of just like a character encounter in a video game, you know? Like,
Yes. Yeah. Instead of being an NPC, he has a logical backstory that also I think informs us a lot about Boromir as well. And I think also lends to my point about the fact that Boromir wasn't just like inherently evil or inherently bad, and that's why he wanted the ring, is because it was a caring for his people and a sense of honor that he could use the ring to do that. That's why he saw it as a gift. And I think Faramir's, if we get into their backstory a little bit later, I think Faramir's backstory that he brings into the scenes with Frodo and Sam also lends to that, is that like it's not necessarily that he's inherently evil, it's just like his lived experience has kind of made him more susceptible to viewing the ring in a different way than other people.
Hashtag daddy issues.
Hashtag daddy issues.
Because also, like, what lies is Denethor telling people that the ring is a weapon we're going to use, and like you can turn invisible. End of list. Like if you're if you're Sauron, you can do a lot, but if you're just like a dude, you can turn invisible.
Like, cool.
Like I'm sure just use an elf cloak. Like just like be like Galadriel, can we buy one? Like, so he's trying to figure out who they are, and they're like, we're friends with Boromir, and he's like, well, that's funny because Boromir's dead. And they have a flashback to Boromir, after they recapture Osgiliath, which is like the old capital of Gondor. And it's in ruins, and they recaptured it. And so like we get the classic, like we get a kind of a Thor Loki dynamic from the Marvel, not from the lore. But the kind of like we have the hot jock, leader brother, and like the artsy gay nerd who plays Wonderwall at parties brother.
I would not consider Faramir that at all. I would consider him a Boromir wannabe, actually.
Okay, so he's like
I read him as like he's like the softer jock version. Like he can't quite live up to Boromir.
Okay, he's he's in the Glee Club and on this football team.
He's Finn. Yeah. Shout out to Glee Booties.
So, okay. No, I get that. I see that. That's probably more accurate. Their dad fucking hates Faramir.
Why?
Is it something like
well, because he was there at the city trying to defend it, and then Boromir shows up, right? Is that what
happened was the city got conquered while Faramir was supposed to be guarding it.
Right.
And Faramir's like, there were too many orcs, and he's like, Boromir wouldn't say that.
Yeah. And it's just like, he's literally like, nothing, and Boromir says this, nothing he will do will make you happy or proud of him. It basically like, you're fucking this guy up.
Yeah. Like
Boromir, great brother of the year.
Because he
defends him to his dad.
He doesn't accept the dichotomy that their dad wants to enforce.
Yes.
I almost feel like maybe the mom died giving birth to Faramir or something. Like you get that kind of
could be,
and he's like, because he hears about the Rivendell trip. They're like, we think they found the ring. Like Elrond and Rivendell's calling a council. I'm like, how did he get the word out so fast? Like Gondor's far.
Yeah.
And then he's like, Boromir's going. Like Faramir's like, I could go.
Because Boromir's like, I don't want to go do that. He's like, I got shit to do here.
And he's like, a chance for Faramir, captain of Gondor, to prove his quality. I think not. Yeah. And he's like, we needed the ring. We need the ring to fight Mordor. Denethor's so bad.
Google tells me that Faramir and Boromir's mother, named Finduilas, died 4 years after Faramir, but giving birth to Faramir made her weak. So he is like the reason.
There you go.
So Faramir is like, okay, he's kind of putting together they might have the ring. So then they say, because Sam and Frodo are like, we don't know the little freak guy, you know.
Yeah.
And then Faramir is like, okay, well, you won't mind if I kill him because he's singing his gross little fish song in our sacred magic pool.
Yeah, and he's like slapping this fish on the rock to kill it. And I'm like, oh,
It wouldn't
God.
die, Hannah.
I know. I mean, I guess not. Also,
Fresh fish, so juicy, sweet.
So when I was watching, I think it was like it's earlier in the movie, but there's like a scene of him like he's like running ahead of Sam and Frodo, and Lyle's like, what would you consider Gollum to be? I was like, he's like their new puppy. He's a really ugly puppy. And then in that moment, it's when Gollum turns around and looks at them, is like panting and smiling. And I was like, see, a really ugly puppy. So and then this scene also reinforces that. He's just like, it reminds me of my dog. I bet you that's the exact same song that my dog sings when he has his toy fish. How do you say it? What is it, Cullen?
Fresh fish, so juicy, sweet.
And sweet. That's what Levi is thinking when he plays with his toy fish.
And so he's like, they maybe explain it in the book, but this is like a sacred pool. So it's like you're not supposed to use.
Oh, did not get that.
They're in these woods that like Legolas eventually lives in, I think, in the books. He moves here, but they're like, yeah, we're gonna kill him. And Frodo's like, okay, no. And so Frodo's like, come
he's
here.
Our guide. He's our guide.
He's our guide. And Frodo comes down to Gollum and is like, trust me, like they won't hurt you. And these fucking rangers, just what do? They turn around and hurt him. I'm like, you backstabbers.
Yep.
When Kesha sang Backstabber, it was about these people.
It was. Mm-hmm. It was actually about, but also Frodo's like calling himself master because that's what Smeagol calls him.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's like getting on his level, and then fucking Faramir's like, do it, boys.
Yeah. And this is when Galadriel is saying that the ring is trying to get back into the hands of men because it knows like that's like the fast track to corruption. Mm-hmm. Like if Frodo's like hearts, like in Legend of Zelda, are going down like slowly one at a time, like a human takes it, it's like boom, like we're at zero, like full on corruption. So Faramir interrogates Gollum, figures out they have the ring, and is like, okay, we're taking you to Gondor, like we need the ring.
Precious. Based on the novel Pushed by Sapphire. Based on the novel Pushed by Sapphire.
So they're going to Osgiliath because the orcs are attacking it. Again, this whole section is not in the book. I think it makes sense, except a little geographically because it's kind of way out of the way. But so they're taking them there, and Sam's like, you know what happened to Boromir? You know what he did? He tried to take the ring. He tried to kill him, and like he did. So, and Faramir's like, and then the Nazgul attack. So they're like, okay, they're here, like you hide. And so they're fighting, and then Frodo is in his Evanescence era, and he is walking up to the Nazgul to be like, I'm gonna put on the ring slowly in front of you.
Very sensually,
right?
With big blue eyes. Yeah. Like fingers, like tongue in the hole of the ring. Yeah.
This is what you want? You want to watch this? And they're like, yeah. He's a cam girl.
Frodo the cam girl.
And then Sam is like, no, and like stops him because the Nazgul's like right there. Like that wyvern could just bite him. And so Sam knocks him down, and then Faramir shoots it, and the wyvern is like one arrow. Ugh, not dealing with that. And is like screaming, and then Frodo is like about to kill Sam for doing this, and he's like, I'm your Sam. I think he says your Sam. Like, don't you know you're Sam? And Frodo's like, oh fuck yeah. And then he's like,
fuck yeah, I do.
Yeah. And Sam is like, we're like in one of those stories, we have people didn't turn back because they were holding on to something worth fighting for. And Frodo's like, what are we holding on to? Like, he's despairing, and Sam is like, there's some good in this world and it's worth fighting for. And this is when you see he does his whole speech and you see like the climactic events of the other storylines.
Yeah.
But this is, you know, the kind of interpersonal one where it's like there's good and it's worth, and that's kind of what Sam is there to remind Frodo is like there's good in the world and you need to fight for it, because at this point he's not really seeing it. And so and Gollum's even a little inspired too. He's like, oh, okay. And then Faramir, he lets them go. He's like, you were right, you know, go back, destroy the ring. And the people are like, what about the laws? And he's like, fuck the police. And then
Straight
Sam
out of Gondor.
Sam is like, you proved your quality. You know, like you have good quality. Like you're a good guy. You're a good man, Charlie Brown. And Faramir's like, oh my God, I'm getting validation from this hobbit that I could never get from my dad.
Yeah, that's
the next best thing.
Yeah,
honestly.
But it is just like he's like, hey, like he proved himself stronger than Boromir.
And I also think that like someone who sees you all the time and they refuse to see the good in you, but this complete stranger who you
have kind of been addicted to.
Yeah, and then you essentially prove to them that you have good in you. Like, yeah, I feel like that probably would be pretty validating. Like, okay, my father was just an asshole. All right.
Yeah. I mean, your father goes to state events in like a bathrobe, buddy. Like, open your eyes. Yeah. Like in a world of like hot, grimy people, Denethor is like, I'm gonna be the wrong kind of grimy. So
I know this happens in Return of the King, and you guys will talk about it, but the way that Denethor eats tomatoes is grimy.
The worst. People are like,
God,
have you gone to the tomato scene yet?
Can't wait.
So their Famar's like, wait, you're going this high path. Is it Cirith Ungol? And Gollum's like, no, I mean, yeah. And then he's like, okay, something really evil lives there. And Frodo's like, I mean, we don't have other options. That's what we're doing. Yeah. And Faramir is like, Gollum, it may death find you quickly if something bad happens to them. Like, basically cursing him, like, if you fuck them over, like, fuck you, like, die. Mm-hmm. You and your little loincloth, they can die. And then, like, you think you can pull off the Tarzan look, but you can't, Gollum.
Don't have the abs for it.
Don't have the abs.
Or the tan.
Or the tan, or the hairless, muscled body despite living in a jungle.
You don't look like Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's the Frodo Sam stuff. Well, no, there's they're going through the woods and Sam is like talking about how they're like in one of the stories. People will want to hear the story of Frodo. And Frodo's like, you're leaving out one of the chief characters. Like, I want to hear more about Sam. Frodo wouldn't have gone very far if it wasn't for Sam. And Sam's like, oh, I've been serious. Don't make fun. And Frodo's like, did I stutter? I'm being serious.
It's true.
And then Gollum is like, he's mad because Sam was like, you know, like Frodo was trying to protect you. He didn't want them to hurt you. Like, no hard feelings. And Gollum's like, yeah. And Sam's like, hard feelings. Yeah, Sam was like, okay, that's good of you. Like, Sam's trying at this point. But Gollum is like, no, Master betrayed us. We're going to kill him and take the precious, but the fat one. So it's watching.
He temporarily cured his split personality disorder. And then, he got attacked by those rangers and then instantly just triggered. I mean, quite literally.
Because he realized he couldn't, he thought he could trust Frodo, and they made it seem like he couldn't.
Yeah, because I feel like the Gollum side of him is really like, not a friend, but like a companion in a way. You know, it's like evil, and like he could see Frodo, potentially like being the good companion for him, and
Yeah.
I have who I do the podcast, the Slug Club podcast with. They the two brothers are Italian as well. And there's something that their grandpa Matuzzo told them that really applies to Gollum's situation. You screw me once, you're dead to me.
Damn.
Dead. Dunzo.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Gollum lives by that.
Yeah.
But
And
he
so,
can't afford to give second chances, right? That's how he's lived so long.
That's
yeah,
true. That's absolutely true.
yeah. So he's like, okay, the fat one is always watching, and I'm like, way to body shame. Who is this? Tyra Banks? No, it's Gollum. Gollum is what the fashion industry would call heroin chic, which they're trying to
Yeah.
bring back. And I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Like the cauliflower orc and the Abercrombie CEO.
So
We all know what I say when I say the cauliflower orc, right?
the one in The Hobbit, right?
The Return of the King.
Return of the King. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, no, I don't. Can't
Google cauliflower orc.
wait. Okay.
You'll know who I'm talking about.
He's the CEO of Abercrombie.
They look exactly like. There's a meme about it.
So Gollum is like, yeah, she's gonna do it. And who is he referencing? He's referencing one of our first contents for Mean Girls Day, when I
I
said one of
have
the Mean
seen
Girls of
this meme
fantasy.
before, and now I understand. Okay. Go ahead.
The truth will set you free. But Sheila, one of the top Mean Girls of fantasy, is who Gollum is talking about. Who again got a sexy makeover in, I think, the Shadow of Mordor video game, and that's propaganda.
Now, the entire Shelob scene actually happens in the Two Towers, the
Book,
books.
yeah.
Oh, interesting.
But they moved
But
it.
I think for time,
Well,
Yeah.
it's because
Makes
they
sense.
wanted to flesh out the Rohan and Helm's Deep stuff, and like that's why a lot of the Frodo and Sam stuff, like I like the Faramir story arc, but it feels a little fillery.
The Faramir
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah, it feels like it's such a middle, like the Frodo and Sam stuff is just kind of like they save all the high stakes stuff for them for Return of the King.
Yeah.
when my dad watches Lord of the Rings, he fast forwards through all of the Gollum, Sam, Frodo scenes because he thinks it's
Interesting.
also like just too slow.
Yeah.
But
And
I agree. I enjoy Faramir.
I don't know. I feel like it's another good reminder that like there's good in the world.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
because if we're saying that like man getting the ring could be one of the worst possible things besides Sauron getting it, is like we have to have those reminders. I don't know.
Because if we talked about, like, we didn't see much of, other than Boromir and Aragorn, like you don't see a lot of humans in the first
No.
movie. It's very elf heavy, with Rivendell and Lothlorien, and so this kind of, the elves kind of pass the test now, right? Like Galadriel doesn't take it, and now they're talking about it's a man's world now, so it's like we're seeing kind of humanity put to the test and humanity at risk in these movies. We're seeing like Rohan and Gondor and these countries that are really facing the enemy, and so it's kind of like, our humanity worth fighting for?
Yes. Yeah.
Because Saruman doesn't think so, and
No.
and Elrond
No, he does not.
barely.
I don't think Elrond really does.
No,
I think
his mother-in-law, like Galadriel, is like, yeah, like they're worth it, and he's like, hey,
are
like,
they?
Which is
Yeah, he
ironic
only-
because he's half human.
yeah. It is funny
He-
how Elrond is such a hater of Arwen and Aragorn when his parents were like a mixed race couple.
Mhm.
Interesting.
His dad was human, correct?
Yeah. Because
And
he
he
had
is the one who went to the Valor.
yeah, to warn them, to get them to fight Melkor. And so they have, his two kids were able to choose which like race they wanted to be, and Elrond's brother chose to be human, and Elrond chose to be an elf. So that, and then and then he's like, Arwen, don't mess with those humans. I'm like, you're part human.
Yeah. And I think he only does good because he wants to do good for his daughter. So
Yeah.
otherwise,
Again,
if it was up to him, he would be like, kill them all. Let them kill themselves.
He's a beleaguered HR manager.
Yes. Every meeting that he has with anybody could be an email, including the one with his daughter.
Yeah, I mean,
Could have been a text to be like, why are you in your room still? Come out of your room, have dinner with your mom and I.
Because I mean, even his call with Galadriel is telepathic. Like that could be a Zoom. That's a Zoom call, and she's like, humanity, we have to help them. And he's like, do we? She's like, I'm your mother-in-law, so let's do Merry and Pippin.
Yay.
Us.
It's us.
Yeah. It's me. Hi, I'm the Hobbit. It's me. So they're kidnapped by orcs, right? The orcs are running around and they leave a leaf, like a
They're
Lorien leaf, a brooch.
Cloak
But then they
brooch.
don't find it until they're in a very different setting. When they find it, I'm like, that didn't add up. Because they find it at the campsite, not at when they're running down the pass.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which like in my brain, I remember them finding it on the path, but they don't find it. They didn't say not idly do the leaves of Lorien fall, which was a sound that my sister had or my sibling had put on our computer when we opened
An
it.
AIM message? Oh.
Yeah, it
Got
was
it.
the opening sound.
That's cute.
Remember when
I
you
love
used to
that.
turn your computer off? Yeah.
That's a really good point. This computer hasn't been off in months.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting because I just kind of assumed it was the exact same setting.
Yeah. I mean,
So, wait, they found it at the camp?
Yeah.
Are you sure? I think they found it on the path.
Because I was waiting for them to find it on the path, and I thought
They found it before they got to the camp, though, didn't they?
Liz, do you remember?
I thought they found it on the path because then they're like, then he says we're gaining on them and they keep running.
Okay, maybe that's it.
And Gimli, that's when he's like, we dwarves are wasted over long distances.
We're natural sprinters.
Right.
So yeah, they're running. Like Lost is using his elf eyes, his Mr. Katy Perry eyes, to find the orcs.
I love the line. He's like, "What do your elf eyes see?" I laughed so hard.
We're taking the hobbits to Isengard. God.
Which that was a remixed thing. There was like a song where they think the hobbits.
What do your elf eyes see? He delivers that with such seriousness that I couldn't take it.
That's why what I mean. Like some of the things that in the first movie like didn't come off as corny do come off as a little corny in this one.
Which is weird because they filmed all of these things at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And it's the same director.
I don't know what it is.
Peter shows up one day. He's like, let's give this up a little bit. Let's a little spice.
So they're running and they run into Éomer and his horse boys, his little gang. And this is when I was like, they're just like being like, hi, I'm so and so. And I'm like, you don't just like give a stranger your name and social security number, like. And they're like, hey, we're looking for these hobbits. And Éomer's like, I don't know, we saw some orcs that we killed and we just burned them all up. Burn baby burn, burning up for you, Jonas Brothers. And so they're like, okay, let's go. So we'll touch base with them. Wait. Oh yeah, because I jumped ahead to the Rohan shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. That we're at the beginning. But the Merry and Pippin, the orcs or the goblins that can't go out in the sunlight meet up with the Uruk-hai. And they're like, okay, we gotta take them to Isengard. And they're like, can we eat them? We haven't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Yeah.
And the orcs are like, no, like you can't eat them. Saruman wants them whole.
The Uruk-hai, we're saying
the
you
Uruk-hai.
can.
Yeah. And they're like, well, what about their legs? They don't need those. And so the orcs they want to eat them, and so they start fighting. They're killing each other, and Merry and Pippin try and like waddle off. And this one orc is like, no one's gonna hear you scream when I eat you. And then Éomer and the Rohan horse boys show up. The bronies are there, and they're fighting the orcs. And they sneak off into Fangorn Forest. Which is a big forest kind of in between Isengard and Lothlorien. We're doing our geography. We're on a geography bit today.
Love geography. Too bad I don't know enough about it. I did not grow up in Middle Earth. I grew up in Ohio. That's the extent of my geography. Yes. So this is also the part where like they kill one of the orcs, right?
And they say meat's back on the menu, boys.
Yeah, I have a fantastic video that you need to watch.
Is it the one about why do orcs know what a menu is?
No.
Because someone's
No.
like, why do you orcs
I want to know
what
what that
matter?
is too.
They're
It's
just, I heard a meme, or I saw a meme that was like, that implies orcs know what a menu is, or their restaurants in Mordor.
That's also terrific. That is a great point. Menus, restaurants, they have to. Well, they have like pubs, right?
Yeah.
So I guess some pubs may have a menu.
Yeah.
But do
so
orcs go to pubs?
I guess they're orc pubs, and orc dive
Maybe I need to
bars.
include that in the children's book that I will one day write called Peter the Good Orc. I've been
Oh my
talking about it
God.
for years.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a series, you could go to a restaurant one day. Perfect. It's how to treat the people in customer service industry. That's the moral of the story.
Right.
That's
Tip well, be nice.
Yeah.
Don't send your food back, no matter
Just
the
eat it.
situation.
Or
Ordered
pretend to eat
potato
it.
soup and you got French onion. Sorry.
Eat it. Yep. They got other things to worry about.
Yep.
Anyway.
Okay, my brain went on a journey ending in 30 Rock, so I need to all right.
Come back to us,
Come back.
Cullen. Come back.
So they sneak off into Fangor, and that gross little orc guy is still trying to get them, but then the tree squishes him. And that tree is more than a tree. It is Treebeard, an Ent, also played by the same guy who plays Gimli, John Rhys Davies.
I did not know
I was
that.
like, I recognized the voice. I couldn't figure out which character it was.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he's like, are you orcs? And they're like, nah, we are hobbits.
Yeah, he's
halflings."
angry.
Yeah, because the orcs have been hacking and slashing and burning. And he's like, who are you? And they're like, we're hobbits, we're halflings. He's like, I don't know what the fuck that is.
He's like, but I'm gonna carry you with me and figure out what to do with you.
He's like, the white wizard will know. And they're like, the white wizard, no. And then he throws them at the feet of a glowing white wizard. Who will later learn. Do you want to?
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for the other storyline.
We should wait till we get to the other storyline, because we're gonna see that. Who cares? These people have probably seen the movie. It's Gandalf. He's back.
Yeah.
He has a little bit of a memory issue, but he's back.
He's back.
But we don't see that part.
He's glowing. Is he pregnant?
He's glowing. A glow up. A literal glow up.
Definition.
He's not pregnant, because I can tell you there is no glow in pregnancy.
So they're the Ents are like, okay, we can Treebeard's like, I'll just recite some poetry to you guys. I trust you. So they're kind of bored. They're trying to explain that there's like a war going on. And so they're also chilling in his little garden area. They're drinking his water, which makes them grow taller and burp.
Yeah.
And
Which is the funniest thing to me.
maybe it is a children's movie.
Yeah, maybe it is. Mary and Pippin, they're the children's book version.
They almost get eaten by a tree. And Treebeard is like, stop, like, don't eat them, like, you shouldn't be waking, go back to sleep. This whole concept of like trees being like a level of awakeness, and that the elves kind of taught some trees how to speak. Like Lost talks about that. Like, yeah, we did that. That was our thing. That was our people.
It's like, no big deal.
To be fair, they were drinking their water.
Yeah.
Yes. And that tree was like, hello, excuse me. That's mine.
We're in a drought.
We're in a drought. I'm supposed to grow taller. And now you're growing taller.
Yeah.
But then I'm assuming they revert back, because there's a bit later
where they're like, oh, back to normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the books they don't. They end up being like extra tall hobbits.
That's cute. I love that. They deserve
Reminds
it.
me of in A Muppet's Treasure Island when they stretched
out
Gonzo.
Yes, I understand this reference too. References.
Fake Muppet fan.
It's me, Amogus.
So
Imposter.
I just got that. Okay. So then they're having an Ent moot in their like little circle of stones, and the tree, the Ents all come. Their names are just the tree.
This meeting could not be an email.
No,
it could not.
Yeah.
Ent takes so long to say things.
And they would break the keyboard trying to type. Smash.
It would literally be in Zootopia, that sloth. That's what I picture this whole time, is like, this scene is really funny to me because Merry and Pippin are like, there's a war going on. We need your help. And they're like, Treebeard's like, we just got done saying good morning. Okay.
But it's
chill.
night.
Don't be hasty. But it's nighttime already, Merry says.
Don't be hasty. He always kind of does that. Don't be hasty.
Be hasty. That's just one lesson that I learned. Have patience. That's something I lack.
Same. So they're taking forever. Treebeard also earlier said that Saruman used to, walk in the trees.
Yeah, he
but
used
now
to be a nature boy.
Yeah, now he has a mind of metal and wheels. He doesn't care for trees anymore.
Hello, industrialism.
Mm-hmm. And and he also mentions how the Ent wives have gone missing, so there are no young Ents. So they're, dying out. And so they're like, the Ents decide, this isn't our war. Like, orcs and wizards and men fight all the time, but like, we've weathered storms and we'll weather this one.
Yeah.
And
then
Mary's like, you're part of this world.
Part of the world.
And they're like, you should go home. And Pippin's like, yeah, I mean, the Shire's still there. And Mary's like, there won't be a Shire.
And now knowing what you said about what happens in the book, like, because Mary's like, it's going to be brown and gross and like there's not going to be one left. And now knowing what happens in the book, it's like, it happens anyway in that version of the story. So it's like, they're going to try to make it better no matter what. To prevent it from happening.
And so Treebeard's taking them away and Mary's just pissed. And Pippin's like, oh, you should take us by Isengard. We'll sneak by. He won't suspect us. And Treebeard's like, okay, I don't get that, but okay, like, I guess you're small.
Sure.
Sure, Jan.
It's like, I guess I'm just your Uber. It's fine.
So he takes them to the edge of the like what he doesn't realize is the edge of the forest. And so he takes it and then he sees how much has been decimated. We're talking Fern Gully levels of decimation. Like the trees are all gone, and like Isengard, like we saw in the last movie, there are like orchards and stuff that they're walking through. Now it's all just pits and industry and machines. The Industrial Revolution happened. And like me, Treebeard is like, why? Why did we do this? Like, he's like, these trees were my friends. Like, I've known them for their whole lives and they're just dead. And he says, I love the way he delivers it. He's like, the wizard should know better. Like, when the orcs were doing it, he was kind of just like, oh, fucking orcs. But he's like, Saruman knows what he's doing and he did it anyway. And so it's like the unfortunate reality that for many people, like, conflicts and evil isn't real until it affects them.
Yes. And I think that another like aspect of realism from our world in this very fantasy world helps ground you in that story, which is, I think, I loved those moments, like moments that I just never noticed watching these movies way back when. And like now, like I'm seeing these moments and getting a deeper appreciation for the story. So.
I love this stuff with the Ents and this whole idea that like even in this story that's all about like wars and dark lords and stuff, like the idea that like but the trees matter too and they have their own perspective on things, and that like in a way trees, even though they're kind of neutral, are still good, that they're good, and that like evil people are the people that destroy them and that like they'll bite back. So he summons all the Ents. He's like, we're marching. We're not, we're not a neutral. We're not Switzerland anymore. Yeah. And so the Ents, they ruin Isaac. They come in and they're just like, they're breaking down the walls. They're smashing the orcs around. They're destroying all his ugly little machines and pits. And they break open the dam that earlier Saruman's like, because they're like, we don't have enough power to like make that army. He's like, block up the river. Dam up. Yeah.
We're gonna save the environment a little bit. We're gonna go water power, hydropower.
And the Ents are like, nope, the river's running free. It's flooding your shit. It's like, because the orcs light one of them on fire. I always loved that as a kid when they light him on fire and then the water is flooding and then he like dunks his head in the water, and so the orcs are all just like washed away. Merry and Pippin are throwing rocks at them.
It's
like,
he has a good shot, and then like, is it Treebeard, right? Who gives him another rock? He's like, here you go, that was great, do it again.
Well, the way that the Ents fight too is very like sportsman-like. Like you see soccer, you see tennis, you see
Yeah.
Yes.
football. Like
They're
it's
jocks.
comedy the way that they
Yes.
fight.
But they're just, the orcs don't stand a chance, and Saruman is like pissed because it's like all his little wheels, all his little plans are like
Mhm.
destroyed by people he didn't expect. He
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
kind of just didn't pay attention to the Ents, and they're like, we know what you did last summer.
Yeah, this is what
We're
happens
here.
when you don't let the EPA do their thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Just gonna say
Russ Cargill's coming for you.
it.
So yeah, the Ents flood Isengard, destroy everything, and Saruman's just bitches gonna be bitches. He's just like stuck there, helpless. Like he thought he was about to be like the next Dark Lord. And it's like, actually, like some trees ruined your life. So embarrassing, embarrassing for
Cringe.
you.
Cringe.
So the wizards were sent by God,
Yeah.
right, to Mordor, or not Mordor, Middle Earth. And so I'm curious, based on how Treebeard's like a wizard should know better, if they knew why the wizards were there, like their purpose, or if they were just kind of like, he was our friend and now he betrayed us.
Interesting.
I wonder if
Maybe
the Ents
both?
kind of knew, because
Yeah.
they arrived on a ship in like the Grey Havens, which we'll see in the next movie. They just like showed up on a ship and were like, we're here. And Saruman was the leader, so he was supposed to be like the one that knew what was up. And so the Ents were like, oh, he's a friend of the elves, and the Ents and the elves were like kind of used to be friends. So it's like, well, he should know, like they didn't hang out with goblins or humans or dwarves that much, but like they could trust the elves. So it's like, well, if, like, that we exist, basically, like, that we exist, that trees have feelings, all this, you still did it anyway.
Yeah.
Because Saruman, he's
the worst.
I hate him so much. Like Sauron
it's just like, it's lucky that like the actor is really good.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'd be like, this is unwatchable. Like this guy is the absolute worst.
He is the Umbridge of Lord of the Rings.
Again, talking about like good acting, I would not be able to watch that movie ever again if she wasn't a good actor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and it's also because he's supposed to be good, and he had all the tools he needed to be good, and he just chose to be like evil.
I'm gonna be evil. Just, it's a Thursday.
Yeah.
I just
He's like,
decided
look what you made me do. Destroy Fangorn Forest and kill everyone in Rohan. Like, cause he
Hello, Saruman. Saruman's dead.
Saruman,
I don't know.
now.
Yeah.
They're like, what about Gandalf? I don't know her. Yeah, so he's mad, and then the insult to injury, the hobbits are raiding his food. They're smoking his weed. They're hotboxing in the ruins of his little evil fortress.
And was it Pippin? One of them was like, should we also offer this to Treebeard too? And Mary's like, no, this could be a distant relative. So we just gotta smoke it ourselves. And then you see Treebeard like coming up to the thing and like leaning in, being like, what are you doing in there? Because he smells it. Yeah. He's like, and then he like leans in there. And then that's the end of that. I was like, I love that. It's so fun.
I feel like them smoking has to be the equivalent of like us cutting off our hair and then somebody using it to make like
drugs
or eat it.
Interesting.
Because like it's a leaf, right? Like leaves fall.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's kind of gross. Like I feel for Treebeard, it would be gross. Like, ew.
Yeah.
That was on me and it was dead. It fell off.
It's a bunch of my hair, stuff. Listeners. Yeah. Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. But again, this is probably definitely the C plot. It's like the least focused on, but it's kind of my favorite.
Yeah.
I just love that revenge of nature. The Ents are just like, nah, just like ruin it for him.
Yeah. And I think it's like there's a big battle and it's heavy in a way that like, I don't know. I feel like maybe we can connect to it a little more because the what they're trying to save or what they're trying to get revenge on is sort of bigger than just like a war between to parties,
Mhm.
right? Which is what like Battle of Helm's Deep is kind of.
I mean, I do think I don't want to undersell Helm's Deep though, because I do think they really
Right.
sell us on Rohan. And the way they do it is by focusing on that there's just a lot of normies here. There's just regular people that like
A lot
don't
of children in distress.
yeah.
A lot of separated parents and children.
Yeah, it's a classic thing, but I mean that's what war does.
Yes.
You know, like if you think of like the refugee crisis and stuff,
Mhm.
you know, like it's just that horrifying like your home is just being destroyed and like
Yeah.
you're running and hiding like
Maybe it's less real for us.
yeah.
Because like it's a revenge of nature, like you said,
Yeah.
rather than like trying to
War.
protect people, like actual yeah. Maybe that's what it is.
And it points out just how violent and like there's no reason for this war to happen. It's just because Saruman is like trying to impress Sauron.
And
So
Sauron's not going to be impressed.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, my man. He's
He's-
just not. You're a tool to him.
Yeah. Like he's never gonna
Like,
see you.
but also like it's kind
you
of crazy.
can't
Like,
be Jello.
it's also kind of crazy that like Saruman is supposed to be a smart person because he's a wizard. It's supposed to be very wise. So is it either he gets completely like enchanted by Sauron, or is he just like actually dumb? Because like how could he not see that he's a tool?
I think it's he's so wise he's dumb again. Like kind of that academia, and I'm not anti-intellectualism, but like that kind of like where he's so in his own head. It's like those people that become so far left they become right. You know, like they're like he's so in his head of like what needs to be done that he's like, what if I just worked against everything I've stood for my whole life? You know?
Interesting.
And it's also by like he's so proud that he can't admit that he's being used. You know, like he can't admit that to himself.
Strange.
And he's
I don't know what's going on with him.
And he's like, you know, it's how like Elrond kind of looks down on humans. It's like Saruman got to that point where he looks down on them so much that he's like, yeah, like burn all those villages of like peasants. You know, like they're not people to him. Like yeah, and he recruits this is kind of in the next he recruits the Dunland people, the hill people. That in the books, I don't know how necessary that is to the plot here. Where he's like, they kicked you out of your homes, go kill them all. You will never appear in this again.
Yeah.
But added some variety to the Isengard armies in the video game. So yeah, so let's take Rohan.
We already talked. They're hot on the trail.
Hot on the trail. So
they find the Rohan people, the Rohanites. I don't know what they're called.
Yeah.
Rohanians. Rohirrim.
Rohirrim. Okay. Yeah. So I mentioned that they run into Éomer and he's like, we burn them all. You may be asking, who the fuck is Éomer? So he's from this kingdom called Rohan. They love horses. They're the Brony kingdom. Excuse me. My body rejected that. They're the horse girl kingdom. They love horses. So he found the king's dying son. He was killed by Saruman's forces. And so he takes him to Edoras, which is the capital of Rohan, and is like, hey, King Theoden, uncle, Saruman and his orcs are like killing everyone. Like they're burning towns, they're killing people. And we meet Grima Wormtongue, another disgusting little freak in a bathrobe. And he's like, actually, no, that's not what's happening. Like, you're a warmonger. And Éomer's like, the war isn't, it's not a hypothetical war. It's like happening.
Like it's happening. Yeah.
And Theoden is like this old crusty ass, like corpse almost just sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
Like,
He's got glaucoma, you know, his eyes are all glazed over. He's very wrinkly and he's not there up in the head. This Grima person is basically running the show.
Yeah. And then so meanwhile, so that's happening, and Grima's also creeping on Éomer's sister Éowyn.
Yeah. So Éomer is also, it's his uncle.
Yes.
Or his nephew. Yes. The king's uncle. Yeah. Okay.
So he's creeping on Éowyn, who is the Disney princess of this franchise. You know, all she needs is a song. Yeah, the Eilonwy, the Lindsay. She has great dresses. She has wants.
She's a shield maiden.
She's a shield maiden. Yeah.
Or wants to be a shield maiden because they don't really let her do that yet.
Yeah. And then so Éomer is like, this is the best way to describe being a creeper. You have darkened my sister's steps for too long now.
And like that's the idea of that is like
that is what
he's basically like a peeping Tom. He's like in the shadows. And yeah, I mean, it is like a really very well written line because it evokes all of these things. Oh, that's some good writing right there, I have to say.
Éomer is like, knock it off, cut it out. And Grima's like, actually get wrecked. Like, you're exiled.
Yeah.
And then he's like, you don't have the power to do that. He's like, actually,
the king signed it.
And it's literally a ripple.
A ripple, and then it like trails off. Yeah. And it's so sad.
Because like the
people who exile him are literally just like normies, like Éomer is. Like they're not necessarily under a spell, like we find out.
Yeah.
Spoiler that the king is. It's so like it's crazy they go along with this.
Well, you kind of get the idea that they don't really like Grima. You get that in a later scene.
Yeah. So then why would they go along?
Because
why would they
it has the seal.
Because power of attorney isn't a thing yet.
Yeah.
So
a couple centuries it will be.
Éowyn invents that after.
Like, yeah, she's like, listen, my uncle was incapacitated and like Britney Spears was definitely taken advantage of, you know.
And they're like, who's Britney Spears? And they're like,
she's like, just wait till you hear toxic. Oh my God.
So his son, the king's son, the prince is dying, and Éowyn is like, your son's dying, come see him. And he's just sitting there like, bleh.
Like I can't move.
And she really loves Korean culture. She's wearing white because someone's dying, mourning. She's a K-pop stan. Éowyn is definitely listening to BTS.
She's so upset that BTS is joining the military and taking a hiatus.
Because of Saruman Isengard.
Yeah, they're fighting Isengard. They're fighting against Saruman. Yeah.
And so she's like, she's in the room with her like cousin that's dying. And in the same room, her dead cousin's dying. Grima comes in and is like nagging her. He definitely watches pickup artists on YouTube, and he has his own channel.
Big Andrew Tate fan.
No, Grima is kind of like, I feel like Andrew Tate is like a skin, and you peel it off, and it's Grima inside.
Interesting.
That's what's happening, because Grima definitely has a podcast.
He has a face for radio, that's for sure.
It's coming from us. He has a podcast where he's like, the way to seduce a woman is to ruin.
He's doing ASMR, the same like gross ASMR, like people are like creeped out.
He's eating tomatoes. Yeah, he's like, it's to.
But he's never had a girlfriend, so
yeah, exactly.
That's the whole point of the pickup artist. Because he's never had a girlfriend.
He's like, you can't trust a hoe, but what you can do is try and seduce her in the same room her cousin is dying.
Yeah.
Saw an opportunity and he tried to take it.
Yeah, shoot your shot, fellas.
She was vulnerable.
Anytime you got a shot where she's vulnerable, crying, let's shoot your shot.
Because he's like, you're fair and pale, like a spring morning that's still holding on to winter. But also, you're trapped. The bower's gonna close in around you. Like, you have no options. Like, I'm here. And she's like...
He's literally explaining something that she talks to... I'm just not putting this together. That she talks to Aragorn about.
Yeah.
She's terrified of being in a cage.
She's terrified of being
trapped. I just put that together. He's like explaining her fears, like, you're in your fear right now, but I'm here to help you. Like that's what Grima's telling her.
Like, I'm your way out. Yeah, he read her to Phil and is like, here's your fear, it's happening. And I think Éowyn having a concrete fear is what makes her a very strong character in the franchise. And why, when I was writing my first musical, when I was making the Sleeping Beauty character, my inspirations were Disney's Sleeping Beauty, Disney's Pocahontas and Ariel, but also Éowyn. It was also like the idea of being trapped was like something that I wanted to put into the character. I don't think I was young, I don't know how well it translated, but that was something that, like, the idea, like, she didn't want to be trapped, she wanted to be like free and run around with the trees and deer. And so she's like, your words are poison. Like, she goes on her BTS stan TikTok and is like, we need to cancel Grima Wormtongue's podcast.
His words are poison.
His words are poison. They're poisoning your youth. She's like, yeah, like this creep is negging me. I don't need him. Like, we need a hero. She starts playing.
She
Bonnie
transforms
Tyler, so we need a
into
hero.
no, the fairy godmother from Shrek 2, which is the superior version. I'm just gonna say, fantastic.
Shout out to Liz was on the episode where they did that song on Glee of Gleevoo when Marley and Kitty sang "We Need a Hero." I'm
Yeah,
sure,
I
right?
was.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That was a rough episode. There was a lot to unpack there.
Oh, I can't even. Rough episodes.
No, we've seen him.
Boy, we didn't even know.
So meanwhile, so that's what's going on in Rohan. So up at Fangorn and Isengard are at the top of Rohan, right? Like Rohan's like a line and they're like two halves. So Aragorn is like, okay, the hobbits didn't die. They go into Fangorn and Gimli's like, why do you go in a dank place like this? And the trees are like, what? And Legolas is like, these trees, like we taught them to speak. And then they go and they see this white wizard, and Aragorn's like, you got to kill him before he talks, because Saruman's power is words.
Yeah, because they thought that it was going to be Saruman, because they're like, there's only one white wizard.
Yeah.
Bitch, there's two now. Whoop, whoop. So kill that Balrog, and that's what you get, baby.
Yeah, so we in the extended edition, I think you see some of this. You see these scenes where Gandalf is flying around, fighting the Balrog and all the different Smash Bros levels.
Yeah, it is kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah, and he wins, and then he like kind of dies, and like he's outside of time.
He goes to the same place that Harry Potter goes to visit. It's the King's Cross Station. No, the King's Cross Station. It's kind of like that. That's where he goes.
And then he wakes up in the glowing white, which in the book it's described that he goes to Lothlorien, and it's the day after the Fellowship left. Like he missed them by a day. And then like Galadriel is the one that's like, you're wearing white now. Like she does we missed a makeover scene. We could have had a makeover scene.
Oh, makeover montage.
And like he's trying on different robes.
Before and after. And then there's people holding up cards.
Like yes
Elrond
or
is
no.
there. Elrond's like 10 out of 10. Actually, Elrond would always be like, that's a 2.
Yeah.
You're not wearing purple, so.
I would have loved that. I mean, because the thing is, Sir Ian McKellen-Cate Blanchett could have acted the fuck out of that.
The fuck out of that. Absolutely.
So he's like, I woke up on 2.0. I'm what Saruman should have been. You know?
Yes.
If he wasn't such a lame ass hater, like is what he would be. So he's like, we need to save Rohan because like right now Sauron wants to destroy the kingdoms of men. Because they're like the main population. Like the dwarves and elves are like kind of like smaller, like niche, like subcultures. It's like we gotta get rid of humans. So they're trying to destroy humanity. And so we need to go to Rohan. He does his little Epona song like Link, and he summons his horse, Shadowfax. Meanwhile, orcs and I guess the humans that Saruman recruited are burning down towns of like fleeing villagers. And this woman, this mom, her name's like Morwen, I think in the captions. She gets her kids, and they're like, you need to go ride this horse, send warning to Edoras, to the capital, like let the king know this is happening. And she's like, but like the little girl's like, but like I can't remember the little boy's name, but like he's too small to ride the big horse, like daddy says he's not allowed to. And she's like, right,
you're gonna die.
Yeah. And she's like, what like mommy, aren't you coming? Like I don't want to go. And she's like, I will find you, like go. And like because people are like, it's like old people and like villagers, and they're like running, and these people are like on their tails. So she's like, get out of here. FYI, in the book there's some dude named Erkenbrand, I guess, who was cut. Basically there's like multiple Rohan horse dudes, and they just combine them all into Eomer to like make it make sense, which I think was
that would have been way too many characters.
Too many.
And then so the main gang, the Fellowship of Gandalf, Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn, our D&D party, if you will.
Yes. We
got a ranger, a fighter. I guess would Legolas also be a ranger? We're ranger heavy, and a mage, a wizard. Yeah. So they go to Edoras, and then this guy is like, Grima says you have to give up all your weapons. And they go to the staff, and Gandalf is like, you deprive a
walking
man of my
stick.
walking stick? Yeah, like.
And then he like winks at Aragorn. Aragorn's like, you son of a bitch, Gandalf. You're so good. I love you.
Brilliant motherfucker. And so they walk in, and Theoden is all like, and Gandalf is like, well, your hospitality is not good. And
yeah.
he's like, you're not welcome here, Gandalf Stormcrow. Like, no one wants you. You're bad news. And Grima's like, get out. And some of the guards are kind of circling, and at one point the guy, the main, like, I think his name's like Hamas or Hamling or whatever, the main Rohan guard or whatever, is kind of like, let's see what's happening. Like, let's find out what's going on here. And Gandalf is like, he reveals the staff, and Grima's like, I told you to take the staff. And that guard is like, oops. And he's like,
did I do that?
Did I do that? Gandalf is like, Theoden's in there, we're getting him out. Like, and basically Saruman is talking like, if I go, Theoden dies. And
yeah,
Gandalf
he's
is
like possessed.
Yeah. And he's like, Saruman's talking, and like Gandalf is like, nope, Theoden will survive. Like, he doesn't belong to you. And he basically does like an exorcism of like, he's like blinds the light, and the guy's like, arr, and Eowyn is like running in, and Aragorn's like, wait. And then Saruman, you literally go flash to Isengard and see Saruman like fly across the room.
Yeah.
It's like he's kicked out of Theoden, and Theoden immediately starts like unaging.
Yeah.
And
like part of his beard disappears.
Yeah, he's just like
wrinkles are gone, color in his face.
He goes from not to hot.
Yes. Talk about a makeover.
Yeah. This Lord of the Rings, the glow up. That's what Two Towers.
Two Towers, the glow up.
The glow up. Yeah. So because Eowyn runs up, and he's just kind of like, oh, I know that face. Like, he recognizes her.
Yeah, imagine like he's probably been in there in some capacity, like trying to figure a way out, or whatever, but he's just like, he probably lost a lot of himself during that process. So yeah, I can imagine that's pretty intense.
And he talks about like how their parents died, and she was supposed to like have someone to protect her and take care of her, and instead she had to like take care of him as like kind of a blithering, like not responsive person, that like she lost so much of her life. I mean, it's really interesting, because in Eowyn you kind of get the idea of what life is like for, I mean, she's very upper class, but like for women here, and the role that she's like forced into as this like caretaker for him, and like for people, and that like she is pushing up against that. That's some interesting stuff. They have a funeral for the king's son, whose name is Theodred. Gosh, but kings do that.
See, here's another reason why I was really confused during Fellowship, is like, that's the start of everyone's name sounding the same.
And
I was like,
it's Aragorn, son of Arathorn.
Yep.
Right.
It's too much. Faramir, Boromir. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah.
So, but now I understand.
So
and CC still on, because I was like, I need it, and I don't watch with CC ever.
And Theoden is sad because he like misses his son. He's like, no parent should have to bury their child,
which is also kind of pointing to like war also in general. It's like, so many parents had to bury their children in the Great War, and then again in World War II, and then again and again and again. And so it's like a timeless, I mean, also outside of war in general, that happens too. So it's like, and he cries, and the actor's very, very good. I teared up quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, Theoden is living his like own Shakespeare play in the middle of this.
Yeah, he was comatose for however many years under that creep, and then comes to, his son's dead. He's realizing that his kingdom is being attacked. He's suddenly thrown back into the role of king. Like, it's
because he kicks Grima out, and everyone kind of like, it's like a Tumblr story, and then everyone clapped. They're like, like he has no fans.
Slow clap. Boo.
And he's like, get out of my way. He's like pushing little peasants aside. And yeah, because he's gonna kill him. Aragorn's like, he's not worth it. Like,
But also probably should have killed him because now he's
Yeah.
gonna go back to daddy.
Yeah, he goes back to Saruman and is like, okay, this is what they're gonna do. They're gonna go to
Yeah,
Helm's Deep.
gives him all this intel. If they had killed Grima, guess what? He would have been like, they might go to Helm's Deep or they might go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know. He would have had to like work more for it instead Grima just gives it to him.
Yeah, he sends, you see his crows doing their little spy shit at one point. Yeah. So so Gandalf is kind of comforting Theoden. Eowyn sings a song. I guess she is a princess. She does have a song.
Yeah, but it's kind of an awkward
it's an awkward moment.
Yeah, no one else is singing and it's not like happy.
Yeah.
And she's like scream singing it. And like she sounds beautiful, but it is a little much.
And then the kids arrive. The kids from the village. They give them stew. And Eowyn's like, they're burning all the villages. And Aragorn's like, yeah, we need to do something. We need to like act. And she looks over and she's like, damn, he fine. He hot. She's like, we love a man of action.
Yeah.
And Theoden's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to Helm's Deep, a very small fortress with very few ways of escaping. It's our big fortress. I played the Battle for Middle Earth video games. I can tell you this is a dumb idea because when you play the Rohan faction, their main advantage is the cavalry and like smashing the enemy with cavalry. The Helm's Deep level is so hard because you can't use the cavalry and they just have like a few shitty archers and like little peasant militia, and you're like, ah. So bad idea. Gandalf is kind of like, I don't know if that's great, but he's like, okay, I'm gonna go get help. Look for me at first light on the 5th day. Look to the east. And then Aragorn is being a horse whisperer, and Eowyn again is like, damn, like
it's like we love this.
He can do everything.
He's perfect.
Eowyn,
oh fuck, he's taken.
He's taken. Eowyn wants to. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? So
it's like
at the Battle of Helm's Deep. So Eowyn wants to fight. She's like practicing a sword, and she talks about like what I fear is a cage, like being trapped and being useless, becoming an old woman essentially, like, and not ever being able to prove anything. Like basically she fears the cage that essentially is her life.
Well, this is later, right?
Yeah. Or they're still in Edoras. They're still in.
Oh, I thought that was Helm's Deep. Okay.
And so
no,
she's talking about how essentially as a woman, she's kind of forced into this role in society that's kind of a cage.
Yeah.
You know, what she can do, you know. But he, instead of when Grima was like nagging her and being like, that's gonna happen to you, Aragorn is like, you're a shield maiden. You're like a daughter of kings. Like
that's not gonna happen to you.
Not gonna happen to you.
You're not gonna let it happen to yourself.
Yeah, basically, like he's like, you're better than that. Like you're stronger. You can overcome that. And I think that was is this an example of like how, like, is he the one? Is he nagging you, or is he saying you're like, I know you have this fear and that's valid, but you can overcome it, and you can do that on your own, not because I'm here to help you.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I take this positively, maybe because it's Aragorn and I think he's perfect, but yeah, I don't know. And I also think she takes it in the sense of like, this person believes in me, other than the fact that like I'm a caretaker.
And so that meanwhile they're going to Helm's Deep, we hear Gimli talk about dwarf women and that they can't, people think there are no dwarf women, they spring out of the ground. And Aragorn's like, it's the beards. She finds out Aragorn is actually like 87 years old because he's one of the Dunedain with long
and then
life.
we find out that she's a terrible cook.
Yeah, her stew. I'm like, yeah, she's royalty. Like,
but or also
first time she's cooked in her life.
Or that's like the best she can do with what she has.
Yeah, because they're on the run. Yeah. Meanwhile, we get this kind of backstory of Elrond telling Arwen that like her and Aragorn aren't gonna work. She's doing like her dramatic cry. You know, she's in a music video.
She's in her Evanescence era.
Yeah, she really is. Bring me to life.
She's listening to that album over and over again.
He's like, you go west because there's nothing for you here. Even if Sauron loses and Aragorn becomes king, he'll still die, and you're gonna be alive, and you're gonna be super lonely. Like fuck grandkids.
You're gonna get stuck with that pain.
Yeah, like you'll always have that pain. But it's also like, she'll have grandkids, like she'll have people in her life still other than Aragorn.
Yeah, like that his his idea supposes that they're not going to have children or something. I
Yeah,
don't
which
know.
like when you're a king, that's one of your jobs.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't you also love like your dad? Don't you want to like live with me forever?
She's like, no.
He's like, "Oh." So that he's saying like you gotta go. And we have this scene of Aragorn leaving, and she's like, you're not gonna say goodbye. And he's like, it's better if you stay with your people. Like you give it back. Like he tries to give back her necklace, and she's like, I gave it freely.
Yep.
And it's yours to keep because I gave it to you. And she does the same thing that Aragorn does with the ring in the Fellowship, where she like puts it in the hand and like puts it close, like it's yours. Meanwhile, Grima is telling Saruman that the Rohan people are refugees and there'll be women and children and weak people. So send the wargs, send the wolves and eat them.
Yeah, that the way Saruman reacts to the men or the women and children line is very creepy. He's kind of like, oh,
It
really?
is.
I want to murder all of them.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
and
Maybe
well
he gets
acted,
off
but also
from
horrible.
killing children.
probably.
Yeah.
Because he also is like, Gandalf thinks he found like that true heir, but that line like faded. Like,
oh yeah, Saruman's like, I don't believe that. There's no way.
Because he can't. He's like, I would have found it. You know.
Yeah, he's very cocky, and it's like, listen, you're a tool.
Yeah.
In more ways than one, but you're being used.
It's like you sat in your tower while Gandalf like went around and like met people, so of course he's gonna like find the heir.
Yeah, he's a gossip whore, and you are a lonely little bitch.
So the warg riders attack. Aragorn falls off a cliff. One of them has his little even star clasp. Legolas gets it back,
and Theoden King sends Eowyn and everyone away and says, you're not allowed to fight. You have to go take everyone away, and we're gonna fight.
Like you're in charge of getting everyone to Helm's Deep. Which I think is interesting, that it's like she still has some kind of authority. Like she's the one who has to get everyone. But she's like, I want to fight. And he's like, no. She has this line, I don't fear death, which in the video game, like that was one of like the like kind of lines she would say when you clicked on her and would like send her to fight bad guys. And I remember brother being like, oh good, and like sending her into like an army.
Good, that's great. I love that, because you're probably going to die.
Queen apparent, right? Like she was next in line.
Yeah, like
for the throne,
because Éomer's exiled and the king is dead, or the king's son. So like if Theoden died, like next it's Éowyn.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So she gets into the fortress. She's sad when Aragorn doesn't come back. You know, Aragorn.
Everyone's sad. Everyone's like, well, except for Theoden King. He just kind of like gives Gimli like
he's like, we got to keep going. People are gonna die.
Legolas, little pat on the back. He's like, sorry about your boyfriend. Bye.
Yeah. Legolas is like, Aragorn, you know, like they're all really sad
because they look down the cliff and it's a river.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't know.
So
guess he's dead.
Aragorn is having some Arwen fantasies, talking about their, you know, sexy times, and then the horse that he let free earlier that used to belong to Theoden's son picks him up.
Yeah.
And so he gets on the horse. Everyone is happy to see Aragorn. They're like, you're back. Legolas or Arwen's
We'll hold the phone. Best cinematic scene. Sexiest cinematic scene.
When he makes it with the horse.
When he opens the doors with both hands as a child and now. I often take that opportunity.
Sensual.
So everyone's happy to see Aragorn. Legolas gives him the even star back, and Éowyn is like, oh yeah, his girlfriend. So meanwhile, Elrond and Galadriel are having their Zoom call, and they're like, are we just gonna leave and let humanity get wrecked? Like, and so then we get Haldir. He's like the gay club guy from Lothlorien.
I called
like
him a twat.
Yeah.
I called him a twat, and spoiler, he dies, and I'm like, he's still a twat. But I'm sad.
I painted his armor pink when I had his like metal figure. Yeah.
I have yet to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
About how I feel about this person.
So he shows up, and this is so he shows up with elves from Lothlorien. That's where he's from, and he's like, I bring word from Elrond of Rivendell, and I'm like,
so it must have been from the Zoom call that he got this information. Okay.
Yeah.
I was also confused. I was like, wait a second.
He's like, elves and men fought before, we come to honor that allegiance. So there was a cut scene or a cut arc, a planned arc, where Elrond and Arwen were gonna go to Lothlorien and talk to Galadriel, and they're gonna have that Zoom call conversation IRL, and she'd be like, okay, take some troops and go fight at Helm's Deep, and Arwen was gonna be in the Battle of Helm's Deep. But it had poor fan response, or like people weren't, and it like wasn't quite jiving, especially because getting from Rivendell to Lothlorien is like not easy. Like they had to go through Moria in the Fellowship, so
yeah.
Yeah, so that was cut. So meanwhile at Helm's Deep, Legolas is like, we're gonna die, and everyone's like, have hope, and they're making little boys and like old men fight, but no women.
No women, God forbid. The way they explain that is they've seen too many winters,
yeah,
or too few. And I was like, oh, that's a really good way to put that. Great writing.
And Eowyn's upset because he's like, I have to wait in a cave while this is happening. And Aragorn, gives her the consolation prize of like, well, they'll need a leader. Like they need someone to kind of like lead them.
Yeah, and she's like, I just want to swing a sword. I get it, girl. I get that.
Yeah.
She's having her own Faramir moment.
Yeah.
Prove herself.
That's true.
The orcs come. There's this huge army. Archer accidentally shoots first. Battle ensues. Legolas and Gimli doing a kill count. Legolas is in his XXS tricky era, Tony Hawk era. He's swooping down the
my god, I was like, we love a
people.
skater, we love a skater boy.
He was a skater boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the orcs, because Grima was like, there's a drain, and so the orcs put a mine, and like Legolas is trying to shoot him, but it blows up the wall.
Yeah, so when we see Saruman and Grima like planning out going to Helm's Deep, he's like, well, what are we gonna do? And Saruman's mixing this like powder, and Grima's got his candle, and Saruman's like, bitch, get back. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, and so he basically, but also like, this is the part where the Uruk-hai is like running. It was like the torch at the Olympics, the Olympic torch, and then he trips into it and explodes. I was like, comedy platinum. Like, this is camp.
We had an action figure of that guy.
Well, he deserves it.
Yeah.
He gave his life.
Yeah, because there's also a scene where Saruman is like sending the army, like, we're gonna crush Rohan, we're gonna kill them all, and you're just like, you're gross. Get a life. Why are you so obsessed with me?
Read a
book. So all the elves basically die. Like, none of those elves survive. Like Haldir dies, they all die, and they have to flee to the keep, like the main fortress. Mm-hmm. Aragorn and Gimli kind of jump onto the bridge. Like, Gimli needs to be tossed. He's like, don't tell the elf.
Yeah, Aragorn's like, we're not gonna make it because it's pretty far. He's like, okay, throw me, but don't tell my boyfriend.
And so this is a throuple.
Yes, don't tell our boyfriend.
So they're fighting the orcs on the bridge, and then Legolas like kind of throws a rope down and pulls them up, which like, that's very strong, Mr. Katy Perry. And the women and children are like in the dungeons, like, oh my gosh, they're here, they're coming, we're gonna die. And Theoden is like, so much death, because now they're even in like the next level keep, like even the keep fell, they're in like the hallway. And Aragorn is like, we gotta keep fighting. And they're like, is there any way? He's like, how do we get the women and children out? Because Theoden's like, we're all just gonna die. And he's like, how do we get? They're like,
he's the worst. Like, at first I was like, okay, like I feel for this guy, and then he's just like, he's being so like, I don't want to say like weak, but like weak. And Aragorn's like, we gotta keep going. Yeah.
And they're like, there's a pass to the mountains, the women and children won't make it. And Aragorn's like, well, we're gonna try. Like, tell them to go.
We have to at least try.
Yeah, like, what are they supposed to do? Just sit there and wait for the orcs to come in and kill them?
And they're like using battering rams to get in, and it's like, Aragorn's right, like, you have to at least try.
Because these people are like,
because otherwise it's certain death, versus possible salvation.
And like if I'm gonna be killed by orcs, I'd rather do it while I'm running and they have to chase me than when I'm like sitting there like watching them like eat my
Scared.
kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're like freaking out, the peasants and the women and children. And so he's like, it's time we ride out. Let's ride out and charge. And Theoden is like, for death. And Aragorn's like, no, for Rohan. Like,
yeah,
your kingdom.
You asshole.
And so they ride out, but it's first light. Gandalf arrives with Éomer, and they're riding down his light.
The horse girls are like, we're here.
We're here.
The bronies.
The light blinds the orcs. And so they just like slam into them, and the orcs are fleeing, but the trees, the horns, which are Huorns, which are like the trees that are not quite trees, not quite Ents, they're in the middle. Right. They eat the remaining orcs.
Yeah, that's an intense scene. You just see like the trees, and I'm like, oh damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a reason why Aragorn is the king of men, and why Theoden is the king of
Rohan. Yeah.
Because he was like, if I'm dying, everybody's dying. He gave up. Bad king.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then everyone's safe and happy. Gandalf is like, we saved Rohan, but the battle for Middle-earth has just begun. Sauron's gonna be pissed. Like, we gotta be ready. So that's basically we made it through that plot. It's always a lot to summarize these movies.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot happening, but I think splitting it up was actually really helpful, because when you're not hopping back and forth, you realize that like the story is actually pretty contained, and it's actually pretty easy to follow each of the stories. So
that's the Two Towers. So let's talk about the world. Let's talk about the vibes and aesthetic, the music.
Great. Helm's Deep music, very intense. Love it. Yeah, there's some spooky music.
Yeah,
especially like when Grima's around.
Yeah,
I don't like Grima. Disgusting.
So our aesthetic, we have Fangorn. It's trees.
it's trees.
But they're like they're like trees plus.
Trees plus.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're it's so like Fangorn is also where in the morning Merry and Pippin wake up. They're still in that same forest, right? But it's like bright and sunny in that area. So yeah, it's very spooky at night. And but also oddly peaceful.
Yeah. It's like you can tell it's like kind of dangerous, but also like still a good place.
Yes.
Yeah. We have Gandalf 2.0. We have the glow up reveal.
I mean, he looks great. Gandalf the White. It's no longer alliterative, but I'll forgive it.
Yeah. You know, as Liz knows, sometimes you have to level up and
gotta get rid of that alliteration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love his new staff.
It's got the little swirl at the top.
Yeah.
Very nice. And also he got a power up too. Because now he can do things that Saruman was like, you can't do that. And he's like, bitch. And he did it.
He can now perform exorcisms.
Yeah, he's now a Catholic priest who can do exorcisms. Yeah.
We got Isengard. We saw last time. Now it's just ugly. Now it's just like
uglier.
Yeah, like imperial or industrialism. Yeah. We have Gollum. We see him now. That little dirty little loincloth. Little
ugly
freak.
Puppy.
Yeah.
So him and like the marshes that. It's weird that like it's a marsh, but like to me it's more swampy.
Yeah.
But I guess like those are very similar, but very spooky.
Well, I think it's in order to be categorized as a swamp, you have to have like trees and stuff around.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
Okay.
Because Shrek lived in a swamp.
Yes.
That he did.
Yeah, my swamp.
So did listen, my character, I cannot remember her name. She was a ranger though. She was a tiefling ranger, and her best terrain was swamp. And then I think part of the reason why we never finished that campaign is because everyone was bullying me, calling me Shrek.
Rude.
Yeah. But I should not have been offended. I should have been honored.
I had a D&D campaign where someone was named Ari, and I kept making Ariana Grande jokes. Like she'd be like, I break down the door. I'm like, she went bang bang into the room. And then she killed my character at the end. Yeah.
Oh well.
And then we have
Rohan.
Rohan.
Basic as fuck. Sorry about it. Glad it's part of it was burned to the ground.
Yeah, it's very like Viking Anglo-Saxony.
Yes.
Yeah, it's wood.
It's no Rivendell.
Flammable. It's no Rivendell.
The
No
capital
Lothlorien.
of Rohan, Edoras.
Yeah.
Edoras.
Yeah.
Seems like it is horribly placed.
It's just like in
Like
the middle
it's
of
in
a field on
a giant
hill.
field, and it's
Yeah.
protected by a fence.
And there's like
A wooden fence.
There's
Right.
like one cottage. It reminds me of the cottage that what's his name from Black Cauldron lived in. That's what it reminds me of. It's literally just like that's the village.
Well, they like walk up a hill and there's like random houses next to the
Mhm.
palace, which is basically a
Yeah,
square.
right at the stair. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's what's his name? The Horned King would not want
Yeah.
to be there.
No. I mean, I feel like Rohan is kind of like the hillbillies, I guess. Well, there's other people that are like hillbillies, but they're not like the highfalutin Gondor people.
Right.
They're like normies. So like when
Yeah.
Elrond was like the blood of Numenor runs thin, like they don't have any of it. Like they're just normal people.
And Helm's Deep is also pretty basic. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just like it's a fortress.
Yeah. And we get our first glimpse of Gondor with Osgiliath, which is all ruins. So kind of a reference to Gondor is on the decline, right? This big city, it's just ruins.
Yeah.
So
Oh well.
let's talk characters. We got our main people, Frodo and
Thruple.
Sam. Thruple, Frodo, Sam, and Gollum.
So there's like a couple of different like relationships happening, like Frodo and Sam obviously getting closer. Frodo and Gollum, some kind of respect
Yeah.
or recognition of each other. And then Sam and Gollum, like at a point, like they're like when they were talking about the potatoes and the rabbits and stuff, it's like they're kind of weirdly bonding. It's like they're fighting just to fight, you know. But I think but then Sam kind of like comes around to him and he's not as mean. I mean, are they really protagonists? I don't even know anymore.
I mean, yeah, Frodo's still the protagonist, but this storyline definitely felt way more sidelined.
Yeah, I feel like Aragorn is the protagonist of the Two Towers.
Yeah.
He has the strongest desire because he is willing to risk his life for a town that he has never lived in.
Yeah. So Aragorn and Arwen, do we still ship them?
Absolutely. Oh God. These scenes were so sensual and I was like, oh, I love this. I love them. They're so romantic.
Well, she was
and
wearing
cute.
that like
The
see-through
sheer-
dress.
And I was like, oh, she looks so good. We love an elven princess or whatever she is, whatever her role is. In a purple, like a lilac sheer dress, and just like she puts her hand on his chest with the thing, and it's so good. We love them. Yeah. I love them.
Yeah, no, we do.
Okay. We as a collective love them.
Yeah. Aragorn, I think you're right. Aragorn is the protagonist. Like Frodo still has the journey and we still care about him, but it is kind of centralized on him. Gandalf, we still love him. He's still just like he's a little more serious, but he's still playful. Yeah,
he's got a little amnesia, so he's dealing with that.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, they used to call me Gandalf. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got Merry and Pippin. They have more of an arc. They're doing something.
And they're being very active. They're like, we have to help.
Yeah.
And we're gonna help by getting the Ents to help the rest of the kingdoms. And so they're great.
Yeah, Treebeard, I loved him. He was fun. We love a tree.
Yeah, we love a tree that talks. I think this is one of the reasons why I love Pocahontas so much, because I love Grandmother Willow. I think I just love a talking tree. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
She had a lot of sass too.
Yes.
Which made her fun.
Legolas and Gimli we get a little more from them. They're still kind of comic relief, which I like, but you get more of a relationship with them and Aragorn.
Okay, so I would like to talk about this when we talk about The Hobbit, but I would like to quickly say that this is after the series of The Hobbit, right? Legolas, completely different person. He's more fun in these movies. In the
Yeah.
Hobbit movies, he is such a fucking bump on a log. And I don't understand how he goes from a bump on a log to being fun.
Is it? I think it's because the writing of that
Well, yeah,
franchise is
yes. There you go.
not up to par. Yeah.
That's why I just was like, how usually you would think that you would start off as fun and then become a bump on a log as you get
Yeah.
older and you see more shit and like, you know, but it's the opposite and I don't understand that. But anyway, we'll talk about that more
Yeah.
eventually.
We meet our new characters. We have Eowyn with her
Love.
crush on Aragorn.
Yeah.
You get it. Like at first I was like, well, he has Arwen, but like you get why she's into him.
Yeah. And he's not egging her on or anything. He's just trying to be respectful, I think.
Yeah.
But I think she's also being respectful. Like she's like, okay, I'm like he's got a woman, but also like I feel like has a lot to learn from him. And I don't mean that necessarily in a sexist way, but like he's a warrior and she also wants to be a warrior.
And he's a leader.
And yes. So I feel like there's like a mentorship relationship happening, but yes, she does have a crush.
Yeah.
But
she also has been like kindness starved.
Of attention. Of
Yeah.
any sort of human kindness.
Because like her brother
kindness.
liked her, obviously. Like her brother's good, but he was off riding around trying to fight the orcs. So
and
like
she was there being creeped on by Grima. Yeah.
Well, I think the unrequited love story is something that everyone can relate to, right?
Yeah.
Makes her so much more human.
Yeah.
And then we have the other Rohan guys, Éomer, solid. Theoden, a little bit of a drama queen. Because he makes some bad choices kind of out of fear. That's who he is. He's the captain in Titanic. I just remembered.
He is.
And it makes sense. He goes down with that ship. He's like, I'm going to go down with this ship too.
It's my brand.
It's my brand. My brand.
My brand.
Contacts, 1-800 contacts, not sponsored.
And then we have Faramir. I think his arc was a good contrast to Boromir's. I like that he has an arc. And we have our elves are a little more sidelined. The gay club gatekeeper dies, but you know, he's a little more accepting now. And we kind of have this storyline of, do the elves just leave Middle Earth or do they help?
Yeah.
And Galadriel is on the train of, we gotta help.
Yeah.
And Elrond is like, I want to retire.
Yeah, he's literally.
And so our antagonist, Sauron, again, is kind of like, he's controlling Frodo or like influencing Frodo a bit, but he's still like, he's not really a character.
Yeah.
So I feel like our main antagonist is Saruman, who we just hate even more in this movie.
And then he gets even worse when Grima joins him. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, Grima.
You're both greasy.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote.
It's like when Argus Filch gets with Umbridge.
Yeah, because one of them is greasy just by like personality, and the other one is literally greasy and also in personality greasy.
Greasy inside and out.
Yeah.
That is Grima the internet troll. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ring race have wyverns now, and we got Gollum, our little freak. You know, why doesn't he shave those few hairs on his head? It would just be go
he's really just do it. Just do it. Okay.
You could braid them like
tiny little braids. Oh my god. He's like, I want to. Yeah, he's like, I want to be an elf.
There is a character that I do want to bring up that we haven't talked about yet in a scene that I don't think we necessarily talked about. He didn't have a name at first, but now he's named Figwit, which stands for Frodo is great, who is that? Because like all of the girls were like, who is that elf? And he was the elf like when Arwen was like, wait, I saw my son, I need to go back because my future is here. He was this like random elf that all of the women thought was hot, and so then they brought him back.
Oh, I think it's in
Return
of the King. I think. Okay.
Yeah. So they named him Figwit.
Amazing.
Okay.
So Google it later.
Okay.
You'll know who I'm talking about. It's the guy from Flight of the Conchords, if you know what that is. But
okay.
Oh. Okay.
he was in Austin Land too, as like the bad guy.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Flight of the Conchords. I figured it was going to be not what's his name?
Not what's
I don't know
looking
any
at-
of their names. I just
Oh,
know who they
God.
are.
The guy who plays the crab in Moana. I figured it wasn't going to be that
Oh,
guy.
yeah.
It's going to be the
Mhm.
other Flight of the Conchords guy. But then, like, when I Google Figwit meme, it's the actual Figwit guy, and then there's a meme right next to it of the other guy's face put on that, and I'm dying.
And then we have, I think Gollum is interesting in that he is someone that you feel sympathy for, but not quite empathy. You don't understand, but you're like, I feel bad for you.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess so. So I mean, but I am also understanding similar to the way Frodo is. And I'm empathizing through Frodo
Yeah.
for him, because like if Frodo's like, well, I can see a potential future of myself in this guy's experience. Also the fact that, you know, he was a river folk, so kind of like a hobbit. So I feel like we're starting to develop empathy, but yeah, we definitely have a lot more sympathy. But also I'm just completely distrusting of him because, you know, he's a creepy little freak. And I'm sorry, but that's how I feel.
In most literary elements, if they were ugly, that's foreshadowing
Sorry about it.
for something ugly is going to happen later.
Yeah. Like when Glinda says a good bitch or a bad witch, only bad witches are old and ugly. And then so Dorothy should have been like, why the fuck did you ask if I was bad then? Old and ugly, I'm 12. So themes. I feel like they're kind of the same as last time, but I think a little strong, like not stronger, but like you see them repeated. So the idea of a small person can have a big impact.
Yes.
The idea of uniting against evil, and really the idea of hope is really emphasized. Like that there's always hope. You never give up hope. You keep fighting for hope.
Drink every time they say hope. It's a good drinking game for this movie. Yeah.
There's a new one of you must act. Like don't wait things out. Don't, you know, be preemptive. Like don't be cowardly.
And that's a tough one because it's a struggle for pretty much everyone on the planet. And so you're seeing a lot of people deal with that differently. And I think that goes hand in hand with hope, is that like you have to act because there is always hope.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads to the big question. Was that your fantasy? I'm gonna say yes. I mean, even though I don't like this one as much as Fellowship, it's still like a exciting high fantasy adventure.
Yeah, this one definitely is my fantasy. It's and I think again it's like it's more of a simplistic part of the story. I think is like we're talking about the storylines, we broke them down separately. It's like they're very easy to follow. I think Fellowship was a little bit more all over the place. I don't know if we could have exactly, well, I guess we could have, but I don't know. I feel like this one was definitely a better in for me. And I think maybe the in medias res start of the film was easier for me instead of the giant exposition dump. So yeah, my fantasy for sure.
I would have to say meh. Kind of because like there is way too much war. Like I'm very much a Fellowship of the Ring gal.
Yeah.
I want the Shire. I want the fireworks.
Yeah.
I want all that fun stuff. Now, does that make it not a great movie in my eyes? No, I think this is a terrific movie. But like, yeah, I watch it every year, but that's because I have to watch all three every year. If it wasn't for the principal, I would take that movie out.
So I guess what did we learn today? Don't piss off the trees.
I learned from the trees that you should only say things that are worth taking a long time to say.
Oh, that is a good one.
When I heard that, I was like, that's actually really good. It's like it's less about actually talking slow, but it's really about thinking through what you're going to say. And also it's like you also probably shouldn't say something that like isn't worth taking the time to say. And I was like, I need that. Tell that to every podcaster. And listen, I think we had a lot to say. This episode was very long, and I think we really lived by the end.
Yeah,
the end ways.
we always take a long time to say everything. We do.
But I really loved that. I was like, that is actually a great lesson, that like only say something if it's actually worth the time to say. Pick your battles.
Your battles.
Essentially a version of pick your battles. Great for relationships. The Ents, they're love experts.
Don't tell the Ent wives that. Learn the hard way, I guess. Liz, did you learn anything today?
I really enjoyed our conversation on industrialism, and I think that
Yeah.
would be my takeaway.
For sure.
Yeah.
So also in line with the trees, the ends.
Yeah. Just a lot to learn from them.
So, Liz, do you want to give a quick plug for Slug Club?
Yes, I am part of the Slug Club podcast. Similar to Not My Fantasy, we talk about all things Harry Potter specifically, but we talk about different topics rather than your typical Harry Potter podcast, which goes chapter by chapter. So we don't talk about each chapter necessarily, but more along the lines of the real secrets of Dumbledore or the history of the Hogwarts Express. So upcoming this month, we are having our second annual Christmas Cup, which is the trivia of which house has the most Harry Potter trivia. I will say that I won last year, but I am not rereading the books and preparing myself this year, so that title may be lost.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And this is normally the time when I read all the books. It's right around like Thanksgiving and Christmas. Now I have a very complicated relationship. So it's having to figure out how Harry Potter fits into my life again.
Right.
And where can we find the Slug Club? Where are you guys at?
We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you would listen to a podcast, we are available.
Awesome. You can follow Not My Fantasy on Instagram and TikTok. We are at Not My Fantasy.
Not My
Or you're
Fantasy
listening
Pod,
to-
right?
Not my Not My Fantasy Pod. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. But also if you're watching this on YouTube, hi, hello, subscribe, hit that bell, get notifications, leave us
Smash
a
that like
comment.
button.
Consensually smash the like button. Yeah, definitely do all those things so that we can get found by other awesome listeners. And, you know, whether you're listening on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called, wherever you're listening, head over there, give us a review. Also, subscribe to us, follow us on Spotify, because apparently that's like a thing.
Yeah.
We learned that from the Glee Boot stats. So follow us there, follow us wherever, even if you don't listen to us there. It really helps us get found by other awesome listeners and I guess watchers.
Yeah.
Viewers, that's a better word.
Viewers like you. We're PBS.
Yes.
Also, if you're interested, follow me on Instagram, Cullen Ever After. But I honestly, most of my time on social media is spent for my podcast. So yeah. Next week we will be having I think it will
Next episode.
So happy holidays.
Happy holidays, and then
Happy
it'll be
holidays.
Happy New Year by the time you hear from us again.
Yeah. And we will be talking about Return of the King with a Lord of the Rings podcast called The Silly Marillion. They're discussing Tolkien lore. And we're excited to talk about the finale of kind of the biggest epic high fantasy franchise out there.
Yeah.
The
Yay.
4.5 hour movie.
A regular or extended?
Extended.
Well, I'll probably be watching the extended. So great. I have to watch that in multiple sets.
I watched this in like 6 different sittings.
I did it in 3 and I was really pushing it. That's why I was a little late today. So
We're not 18 anymore is the unfortunate fact.
Yeah.
You can't just sit through a 3.5 hour movie anymore. It's just not possible.
I got things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Liz, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Yay.
Yay. And see you then, listeners.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Rivendell.